building the cars, because last year it was only like, okay, you have this car and this track and that's all. This time it's a whole different thing. We need to pick cars. I mean, we have a choice of cars. We have a PI budget we need to spend on those cars. So we have to do a lot of stuff.
So a lot more thinking, a lot more strategy going into your race weekend.
Yeah, exactly. The strategy takes a lot of parts into the results. We really need to think about what we are doing. Yeah, for example, I think we made a small mistake for the semi-finals, so it would affect us. But I think for the finals, I think we've done the good thing. But yeah, it's totally different.
Well, I'm looking forward to watching you on the track. So, Lej, good luck this weekend.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys. I'm here with Williams' Mitch. Mitch, you've come so far to come to this point in the competition. Last year you were ranked third, and an incredible performance so far in the ForzaRC Invitational Series. How are you feeling?
I suppose there's a little bit of nervousness coming into the event, sort of just relying on each other to perform. We just really want to make the final, so we'll see how the semi-finals go tomorrow.
And I mean, this is your 5th LAN event, I'm right in thinking that. How do you feel today compared to thinking back 5 years ago, coming into your first live event?
To be honest, there's not much difference. Yeah, I just head into everything the same, just want to get the results.
And you're just focusing on what's ahead of you, what's lying in front. You don't think about the races that have happened over the last few weeks?
No, we're just trying to work together to get the best results together.
Because racing as a team is a new thing for you this year. That's a new part of the format for 2019. What's that been like for you as a team in Williams?
It's been quite an enjoyable experience. I'd say I prefer it to previous years. You know, obviously working together, building together, we test all together, practice, all everything.
And so many different cars that you will have to drive and to get to grips with in this championship. How do you decide who races with what car in each round?
Yeah, so we usually just group up in an online session, and we'd be practicing for hours, testing builds, and we'd all test different cars. I usually just go for what suits each driver's driving style, and then we'd pick something from there.
And in that terms then, do you feel like you've got a particular favourite type of car, or is it really just you adapt your driving every time?
Most of the time we have to adapt, but I do prefer to run front-wheel drive cars or four-wheel drive, whereas Roadrunner and 7 prefer rear-wheel drive. Roadrunner's quite good with the four-wheel drive cars as well.
Great stuff. Well, good luck in the competition, and yeah, thank you. I'm here with Jota Commando, and Commando, you've come a long way to be here right now in this competition, but traditionally you've not always had the best luck in the LAN events. Can you tell me how you're feeling about it being here in the semi-final?
Yeah, I mean, my luck hasn't been great through the past years, but the start of this competition with the qualifying round has gone pretty well. My run of bad luck has seemed to end, and I'm hoping that it's going to continue for the final. For the semi-final, so we can make the final and hopefully, you know, win. Feeling confident.
Definitely. I mean, interesting that as a team, you know, some of the other teams here have got players on all different countries, whereas you guys are all based in the UK. Do you find that that helps you in terms of bonding together as a team?
Yeah, I think so. I think you see some teams as well, there's language barriers. I think having a good communication is key. We've been friends before we were teammates as well, which helps a lot. Boket lives near me, maybe like an hour's drive away. We've met up outside of ForzaRC before as well, so having that friendship as well as working together as a team helps a lot.
Definitely, I can imagine at this stage in the competition, you really need everything you can draw on as a team to work together.
Yeah, definitely. You know, just relaxing outside, waiting for the racing to start. You know, get everyone to feel comfortable. No pressure sort of thing. You know, we all put pressure on ourselves, but if we just relax together, you know, we sit in our room, you know, have a chat, go over what our plan is for the racing, and yeah, I think it does help a lot.
And at this stage in the competition, you've got some of the real heavy hitters that you're going to be coming head to head with on that grid. How do you feel your chances are against the other teams?
I think we've got a good chance, really. We proved that we've got the pace through the qualifiers. We're a good qualifying team as well. I think we were the only team to take pole in every race, starting from the front row. So I think we're going to work on that. Like, our main goal is to take pole in qualifying and just run from the front. I think that's our best chance, really.
That's great. Well, best of luck to you all in the competition, and we'll see where you are on Sunday.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. I'm here with Lazarus for Swan. You guys have done so well to be at this stage of the competition. This is the first time everyone is here together in the same place, though. What's it like walking around behind set, seeing all the other teams? Is there any tension?
There's an incredible amount of tension. You can tell that everybody here is under pressure. There's a lot of money on the line, and I think personally I really enjoy the fact that I can see other people are under pressure. I think our team's just here having fun and enjoying it, and it's definitely playing into our advantage.
You guys are, you know, of all the teams here, you're very well known for being a close-knit unit. How does that make a difference to some of the other setups we see in the teams? Do you think that's one of your strongest advantages?
I mean, having this close-knit relationship between the drivers means we have a lot of trust in each other's abilities. I think we're all confident that we know each other will do our jobs, and having that level of strength in our relationships means that we can be successful at any point in this competition.
And I guess in terms of developing strategies, we were talking earlier and you were telling me, you know, if you need to have frank conversations and work things through, that really helps you to be direct with each other and work for the good of the common good of the team.
Yeah, I mean, we all know that if somebody's criticizing you, it's not out of spite or something you have against another person. It's just trying to make each other better. And we've done an amazing job this season of making each other better, getting stronger as it goes on, and I'm really excited to see how we do at this event.
To be at this point in the competition, it goes without saying, everyone here in the LAN final has a huge skill set. But what do you think is the difference between getting to this stage in the competition and going all the way to get to that podium?
To get to this event, you need a lot of talent, but I think to be successful when you're actually at the final in front of all the bright lights and cameras, you need to be a lot stronger than just talent. It's about being able to withstand the pressure and be a strong driver mentally and focused on stage.
And I mean, you achieve a huge amount in terms of how you manage your personal life, because I mean, I'm right in thinking you're studying to be an airline pilot. So you must be doing so much to balance all of that and all of the practice that goes into performing at this kind of level. How do you do it?
It takes a really strong work ethic to be successful with that, but I think being able to balance between school and here has made me a much more diligent driver. I've learned to practice efficiently and make use of my time, and when it comes to being at an event like this, having that kind of discipline will really help me to be successful on stage.
Well, I wish you every success this weekend. Good luck.
Thank you.
We are in the semi-finals, and 4 teams will turn into 2 as we head towards the final tomorrow. This first round will see Williams match up against Jota, Sauber Esports and Team Highlands Racing across 4 tracks. That's Laguna, Long Beach, Road Atlanta and then Silverstone. We're underway and on board with Europa, heading down to the first turn of the first match, of the first race of the semi-finals. And Europa keeps it clean, round the outside, tries to outdo 2, but will have to back off on that midsection of the corner. Chemical runs him out of room, and Europa left limping at the rear of this pack. but this is getting very close indeed as they run up toward the corkscrew. Davey with a little puff of smoke there, heavy on the brakes, locks up on the turn-in, and all three make it through okay. I will say, the closer Seven and Davey get, the more South is able to reel them in.
But the advantage has now swung even further in Williams' court because Seven is in 7th, which means all three of their drivers are within the top 7. That's a huge points haul out of race number 1.
Well, as we run through the last couple of corners here, it's Sauber Zoom who's going to be leading this thing. He's going to take it across the line, but perhaps his teammates, Davey Skills and Chemical, not quite doing enough because provisionally at least, while Sauber get 26 points and the win, it's going to be Williams with that consistency, with that performance from all three drivers who are going to get 2nd, they're going to get 7th and a 5th as well, and that's a 28-point haul, 2 more than Sauber, and a fantastic job for the Williams team and our number 1 seed. We're riding with Seven from the Williams team, who's already trying to put a move on Virus. He's going to make that happen long before we even get into the corner. Beautiful move from Seven and up into 8th position. I'm looking at the barriers here, looking at the walls, and hoping there are no cars who are going to block the way as things go through the fountain and into the rear of Bokit. Seven scrappy, but makes it through, and the cars ahead also safely through that first sector.
I noticed a little bubble above Zoom, Sauber Zoom, 0.5 seconds of the penalty, which means Mitch can take the win if he stays within half a second of the leader, which is why the Porsche is acting as if it has a tow rope tethered to the Lamborghini. There is no gap between those two. THR Rich has been the breakout superstar of the year. We heard Andy say that he thinks that Rich is amongst the greatest drivers. Well, today he's mixing it up with some of the greatest drivers, but he is further back off that leading trio.
It's all acceleration now, and that run to the line as Zoom takes his 2nd lead across the line at very least. Commando, he's got his head in his hands coming through in 3rd. I don't think he can be too disappointed with that result. That run down towards turn 1, on board with Jota South, with the team who have it all to do. They've got to make up a 6-point deficit, but they've got the equipment to do it, got 3 boosts between them, and South sitting pretty in 11th, watching up the road toward Davey Skills, thinking, I'm going to get by you, I've got to get by you, but I've also got a whole race to do it. There are 7 more laps remaining and plenty of time for the two teams to scrap. We're running on board here with Jota South, who's holding Davey Skills behind, but this is going to be very important on race points as we see Davey Skills stretch the legs of that Camaro and move a long way around the outside. South still in this, may be able to defend, but Davey Skills, he's got a lot more top end.
There's a lot of paint being traded back and forth between these two.
That Z car, the Nissan 370Z, up against the Ford Mustang. Straight line speed is what it's going to come down to, and the Ford has it by a hair. The two going to be side by side into the last chicane. It's all about line here. It's all about that dance of racing. Who can come out on top with South up the inside, pushing his way through. He's going to hold the position. He's going to get the point for the Jota team. Massive move. 3rd time of asking, and Zoom crosses the line in the lead and takes the win for Sauber Esports. Mitch will have to settle for 2nd.
On the podium, actually, Ali, so that is not a good enough result. Zoom celebrates. Congratulations, that was a very well-earned win.
And Sauber Chemical is on a next shot as it gets a little bit bumpy up ahead. Roadrunner and Virus getting into each other, disadvantaging each other, and allowing South up the inside. Great start for Jota South.
Roadrunner. I don't like that move.
You don't like
I'm
that
just going to put that out there right now. I think Mitch was driving his own race. If Commando hadn't made that move, it wouldn't have compromised Mitch to scrub off so much speed, and the Williams driver would have been able to recover. But because he lost that momentary bit of forward motion, it dropped him back. And at Silverstone, you can't afford to lose momentum because it is such a long, fast, winding track.
Commando hangs it round the outside. He can't give it up. He doesn't want to let go because he knows what that means, but he will file in behind Mitch and follow him across the line here. Commando 3rd across the line, and will it be enough?
Teams are the first to earn that grand final positioning. It's Williams Esports and Sauber Esports, both passing the 100-point line with 105.
Every day amplified.
It's heating up with the second semi-final. It's going to be Lazarus up against Red Bull Racing, TX3 and FRF. The same 4 tracks as the first semi-final. That's Laguna, Long Beach, Road Atlanta and Silverstone. We're on board with Rossi in the run down toward the Andretti hairpin for the first time at Laguna Seca. And he's looking for an outside line on RBR Venom already. And already we can see that the 2 Red Bull Racing drivers of Box and Venom are very close to each other in 6th and 8th on the grid. So a great start from Venom.
Well, and amongst the top 3, Ali, we're seeing something different right now because it's 3 different categories of cars being represented. The Lamborghini, the 1997 version, is in the GT Icon category. That's currently leading in the hands of Force 1. Liège is representing the Sport Touring category with the 2016 Chevy Camaro. And then we find the 2016 Porsche Cayman with Lightning, Sports Coupe. All 3 variety of cars up battling for the lead of this race. But I do want to acknowledge, right now, LZR is doing a much better job as far as the team is concerned than RBR or TX3.
RBR Liège has quite rightly shut our mouths here. We were doubting his build, we were doubting the way they put the cars together at Red Bull, but coming out in race number 1 has shown incredible pace and takes the win. Little scrape against the pit wall, and you know he's class when just comes out and gets that 20 points.
Yep, proved once again that he is number 1.
We're on board with Red Bull Racing's Box as he heads down the road towards turn 1 at Long Beach. A little bit of a gap appearing between Box and the drivers up ahead, and that'll probably serve him quite nicely as he gets on the brakes. And that was Rossi into the wall at turn 1, absolutely stopping his car. He may have got damage there, Shay. That is huge. I don't think that's how Lightning works. That's not how he's wired. It's all aggression all the time, and Lightning's still fishing around, still looking for a move. He's stuck up now in the draft of Force 1 as we head down the back straight and towards this long right-hander. Lightning peeks to the inside. He's going to get the door closed on him by Force 1, and how he managed to stop that car from spinning, I will never know. Liège, of course, takes a second victory for RBR, and it's been such a great performance from him today so far. 2 wins for 2 races. Force 1 manages to hold Lightning back. We're on board with Rossi though, and running down towards turn 1. He's going to have a better start to this race than the first one. I suspect he's going to be looking at the rear end of Box's car, as one might look at the rear end of a donkey, because it kicked last time, put him right into the wall.
So Box, the only one of Red Bull Racing's drivers in this race without the boost, has to be wondering, why didn't they give it to me? Venom is only up in 7th. He's only 1 position in front of Rossi right now. Box has to be thinking he could have had a lot more places.
As Andy said, handicap does not have the benefit of it. Racers up the inside here in the run through toward the back straights, trying to make it happen in 2 corners. Very forceful on the corner exit, and squeezing handicap right up against the line there, who picks up a 2-second penalty for his efforts. Unbelievable racing. RBR Liège takes his 3rd win for 3 races here in the semi-finals. Nothing seems to be able to stop Red Bull Racing from getting the top of the podium. Not Force One, not Lightning, who will have to settle for second and third. Just up the road from them, Bull is up the inside of races, and Mr. Jack catches Venom, pushes him wide, allows Rossi up 2 positions, and that's a green car on the inside of Mr. Jack, who says, all right, I got into Venom, but I don't need to be disadvantaged by that. I'm gonna come back and I'm gonna take that position. That if Box can hold back the 2 Lazarus drivers, which I think might be a little bit like putting wine back into a bottle. Unlucky there for Box. Holds back races with Rossi making the double overtake.
Happy as could be. Lage proving once again that he is undeniably the best driver in the FRC. 4 races today, 4 wins, and he's looked barely contested across the field as he gets a pat on the shoulders from his coach Asics. Very well deserved.
Motor Trend presents Top Gear's ultimate guide to Stigness.
I think you'll find track 4 is particularly to his liking.
Strangely calm now. Staying listening to French than usual.
Top Gear, the ultimate collection. Now streaming on Motor Trend.
Every day amplified.
The ForzaRC 2019 season has been incredible. It's Williams Mitch who's going to take the win here and followed across the line by his teammate Williams RR. We're on board with Sauber Dave, and right up the inside, he's going to sluice past two. Lage is in second right now, but not for long. He's going to have to serve a stop-and-go penalty for contact on lap one with Jota and that's Hydra into the wall. Disaster for the young man from RDE. Racers goes defensive into the bus stop chicane. Rich tries to struggle it round the outside. He's only going to have one more opportunity, one more lap to get that win. 8 teams, $250,000 on the line. Who will rank supreme? Tune in to find out. The Forza Racing Championship Finals partnered with Lamborghini. Watch it live on the 23rd and 24th of November.
We saw intense competition. We could feel the tension in the air, and we heard the sounds of defeat. Welcome to the ForzaRC Invitational Series 2019 Grand Finals, live from Los Angeles, California. I'm Kate Osborne. Alongside me is Kate Yeager. And Kate, we saw some epic battles in the semis, but this all began weeks ago.
It absolutely did, in a season that was defined by teams, team dynamic. There may not be an I in team, but there is an ME, and we saw some standout drivers yesterday as well, and I can't wait to see it again today.
This all began with 12 teams. We whittle it down to 8 in the semifinals, and today it's really all about the final 4 here. As you can see, we have Williams Racing, we have Sauber.
Absolutely, and then of course Red Bull, followed by Lazarus, our top 4 teams today on Championship Sunday.
And speaking of Lazarus, yesterday it was interesting talking to them. The intensity was there, they could feel it, and they said it was actually more than they even thought it would be in the semifinals, which laid the groundwork for the grand finals today. I said, what statement are you making? They said, we're young, but we can still compete with the best, and I think that's exactly what we're gonna see today. Who is gonna be the best? Gabby?
Well, apparently there can only be one best when you have a prize pool like that on the line. But welcome, everyone. My name's Gabriella La Tigress Devia Allen, here to be your North Star once again on the analyst desk for all the breakdowns you could possibly need. And as per usual, 2 all-stars by my side, we create a constellation for you over here. We got Brian, we got Mellish, full decked out for the grand finals day 2.
I'm feeling really confident right now.
Edition, one of one.
That's right. These are one of a kind. Feeling really great. Yeah. Not only are we wearing the shirts.
Yeah.
The shirts. It's fantastic. But we are here for the finals. I cannot wait to see what happens today.
Yeah, it's been tough competition in such a short impact time. Like 9 weeks of racing. It all comes down to this for some big prize money.
Yeah, with all of the weeks that we've went through so far, everything we saw yesterday, this being the first time we're seeing the team format in full fruition, what are your favorite characteristics about the series in its entirety?
Well, this is an evolution for Forza RC. In previous seasons, you know this, Mellish, in previous seasons, it was one man for himself, right? One person on the track. This time, there are strategy, there are coaches, there are all these dynamics happening within these teams, and each team expresses it a little differently.
And I have to follow on from that. It's not just what we see on track, but also off track. Behind the scenes, talking to the drivers, see how much time they put into building the cars, testing the cars, submitting the cars wrong, and then having to make last-minute changes. It's all part and parcel of this championship.
That time, that blood, that sweat, those tears, it all contributes to who our 4 finalists are here today. So let's go ahead and revisit the semifinals yesterday a bit. From our first one, it was Williams and Sauber that ended up qualifying through. So what were your thoughts on how that went down?
Well, Williams and Sauber, of course, make it through, which means that a Jota team didn't make it through, and we felt very strongly that 3 teams could have been in the finals. You know, any of those 3 could have earned their way into the finals. Unfortunately, it was Jota out, but Williams had a dominant performance yesterday, and Sauber with Zoom looked amazing.
Yeah, you know, we kind of like, I think Sauber are fan favorites with their experimental phasing. I think it's really good to see that. They've gone against the grain. They've, you know, the first time they invested in Zoom in the semi-finals, it was great to see. It worked out for them. Williams went against the grain with the Porsche Cayman. That worked out for them. And to say that Jota didn't get through and still managed to maintain like 92 points, and that wasn't enough to get through, is insane.
Yeah.
It just shows the tightness of the competition that we have here, not just yesterday, but today. And for our second semifinal, we have 2 additional grand finalists that came through, Red Bull and Lazarus. But it seems like it wasn't much of a surprise for many in the audience.
Yeah, I'm not sure we were surprised by Red Bull and Lazarus. These are dominant teams throughout the rest of this, throughout the entirety of this season. What I think was surprising, and what I think the other 3 teams have to be looking at today, is how dominant Lage was yesterday. He was incredible. The Lage of 2018 and before.
It's just resume role for Lage.
Yeah.
He just fits into that format perfectly. Put him out in front, give him everything you got, and he'll perform for you. He's a great team investment.
Yeah, and one thing that we're going to get to break down in a bit is the specifics of not just the team investment, but the strategies, drivers that are coming on through. But another great thing about the ForzaRC in this entire series is we have so many experts standing by. One that's been joining us on the desk pretty regularly, that's on over by the stage with Kate.
Hey guys, in fact, I've got the guy with me here. Andy, you have been in chat, you've been on the analyst desk, you are everywhere. But I want to know, I want to get that analyst hat back on you and tell me a little bit about what we saw yesterday.
So yesterday I picked out, or today I picked out 3 key moments from yesterday's semifinal matches. And key moment number 1, it actually happened right away. Semifinal match number 1, and in the first few turns. This was, remember, it was Mitch gets pole. Okay, he's on the inside at Laguna Seca, and on his outside is Zoom in the Diablo. And right off the rip, right from the start, Zoom gets in front of Mitch and inches him out, and they would go door to door for 2 turns. And Zoom ultimately wins that battle and goes on to win 3 races.
I was going to say, in dominant form for sure. Talk to me through some other of your highlights.
Key moment number 2. This was same track, semifinal number 2 now, and this was Lage and Force 1. Force 1's in the lead. Last turn now, not the first turn, the last turn. Lage, strong on those brakes, gets inside at the last turn, and then they go door to door, side to side, up the crest over the start finish, coming downhill now. Force 1 tries the same thing, doesn't get it done. He goes deep. Lage, cut back, textbook cut back maneuver, and he would go on to win all 4 races.
Man, some of these very gut-wrenching, incredible moments. Bring me through the third one, sorry.
Third one, okay, so this is Long Beach now, semifinal number 2, Box versus Rossi. Right off the rip, same thing. They're coming down turn number 1. There's no room here. And then Box squeezes Rossi. Rossi hits the tire wall, avoids disaster. Doesn't have to pit, I believe. Lazarus survives the match, and they both move on to today.
I'm telling you right now, Andy has a way with words, and I got verklempt because it is so much fun to listen to, and you did so great. If you guys have questions, Andy's also going to be in chat, I think, today, as per usual.
Absolutely.
Fantastic. Well, you know what? From one Kate to another, let's find out what Kate Osborne has to say.
A very special guest with us here this weekend, and couldn't be more honored, especially as we're partnering up with Lamborghini. We have Corey Lewis, a driver in IMSA, but also very familiar with the Lamborghini brand altogether. An incredible story, his storied brand, and we know that very well, but you have your own story with it. What is it?
Yeah, I've been with Lamborghini now for 6 years, mainly in their one-make Super Trofeo series. We've won a couple of championships there, and then as of recently, in their GT3 car, Huracan model also. And it's an honor to be here at this championship. It comes down to the final day here, and I'm excited to see how it unfolds.
As I say, you've been kind of eyeing this thing for a couple of days now. Is there any standout teams and drivers that really come to mind, or are you just kind of feeling it out and seeing the intensity is tough around here?
Well, the intensity is definitely building. Being on the practice day, the semifinals yesterday, I feel like Red Bull has the target on their back, so to speak. But honestly, I feel like everything that has transpired to now, it's a team effort. It's not just one driver. So we'll see how it unfolds. And honestly, I don't know if I have a favorite right now.
I will be circling back on that a little bit later. And of course, with it relating to Lamborghini here today, how would you describe getting behind the wheel of a Lamborghini? Many of us not even yet at that point in our lives where we've had that opportunity.
I've been very fortunate to say that. Yes, I do get to drive the Lamborghini Evo Huracan right here. It's 640 horsepower. All-wheel drive, also with the rear steer, just really hugs the road with more downforce than the previous models also. So it's a awesome experience. I'm very, very fortunate for it. And, you know, in the game today, people experience that themselves.
You know, one of the things we were talking about is the fact that you'll be able to hear some of these Lamborghinis today. Is there a way that you could describe what that sounds like, or maybe the way it makes you feel?
It's a rush, honestly. It rumbles in my chest for sure, especially in the real race car. The game really transpired. It shows that, rather. And, you know, it's a very, very cool experience. And, again, today is going to be the final day here. We'll see what happens.
So the grand finals is all about. Of course, in order to get to the grand finals and who's the winner, we need to get to some racing, and they're going to be driving some Lamborghinis. Corey, what's your take on the car selects today?
Yeah, a little bit of everything. You got some of the old school, you got more of the modern cars. All very, very high horsepower race cars. The drivers today are going to have to manage the horsepower. I think it's really come down to consistency throughout the races. And again, like I mentioned before, it's going to be a team effort, and we'll see how it goes.
A team effort, consistency, and of course carrying that momentum from the semifinals as well. Thank you so much for your insights. We'll be back with Corey here in a little bit to get that pro perspective. But before that, let's get to some racing, shall we?
I must say, it's been really great getting that perspective from Charlie yesterday, now Corey today, really bridging the gap between the wheel and controller here for the Forza RC. But one thing that we have to remind you about is there's much more on the line than just that trophy and championship title. That's right, $250,000 in prize pool. A whole $80,000 going to that top finishing spot, trickling down to $22,000 for number 4. Everyone else that we saw yesterday that isn't competing today will still be walking away with a pretty decent slice, maybe not the entire cake, enough to kind of have leftovers, but something to give you a little bit of that dessert top off after this event.
Oh, you can take a big bite of $80,000 all day long. Give me a slice of that.
I mean, looking at that prize pool, $35,000 difference between first and second.
I know.
I think it's a recipe for desperation. I have to say though, it's going to be life changing for some of these guys. Davey Skills, he's fathering his baby. It's going to be baby Skills. 15 years from now, 2035 world champion. I can see it in the cards.
Well, and that's the thing. This is the grand finals, and with all the excitement that we've seen from the teams going just into yesterday, with the teams that are still in it, have you noticed any change in energy from them, whether it be more excitement, nerves, or anything of that sort?
All the drivers I've talked to have been very calm. They've said we've had a long week of practice. I was talking to Box this morning. He's saying we haven't really gone out this week. We've just practiced, and that's what you expect from a team as professional as Red Bull. These guys are all business.
Yeah, and I think especially for Red Bull, they've had that opportunity to have a boot camp. They came here a week earlier. They've had that practice. Some of the teams haven't had that opportunity. But yeah, the mood has been calm throughout.
Well, and speaking of Red Bull, it is time for us to meet the teams entirely. So, Red Bull Racing first up. Red Bull Racing, that's Lage, Box, Venom, and Coach Asics. Now, with first place finishes across the board, their strat is no secret.
They've been doing what they want to do, and that is win races. Put Lage in front and watch him go. It's crucial because the point differential between first place and second place is a massive 5 points.
That's huge. And let's talk about his co-drivers. Venom and Box have done a great job this season so far, and they received some love yesterday. They haven't had many PI points between them in the qualifying rounds. They got some boosts, and they performed really well in the mid-pack.
And with all of that being said, Lage yesterday really accomplished exactly what he set out to do.
Absolutely. 9 out of 10 wins for this man. I mean, he's missed 2 rounds, and he's won 9 races, which is more than anybody else. But the most staggering statistic, he went 4 for 4 yesterday.
And let's not forget, he was in a car that he said he didn't like. So imagine what he's going to do in a car that he favors.
That's going to be super exciting to see, because when you think about that and you hear from a driver, oh, I'm not very confident in the build that I brought through, you would expect a completely different result from that.
Yeah, I sort of questioned yesterday whether he was being a bit cagey about that car. Regardless, he's in a car he likes today, so I expect great things from Lage and the rest of Red Bull.
When we talk, I think what I've managed to do is, when they say they're not confident in the car, I think I've managed to loosely translate that into maybe 2 tenths difference.
Yeah,
that's
right.
about it.
I'm a tenth down.
Yeah, I'm a tenth down.
And I'm sure that confidence in their build today is resonating with every single driver and their coach, too. So I want to hear what Asics has to say about these grand finals.
Asics, we were just talking earlier about how confident you are in your team. I want to know a little bit about your mentality in a LAN event like this, because you've got so much confidence right there.
Yeah, I mean, when you have this kind of drivers, you can only just trust them and just let them what they do. And I mean, we have Lage, which is basically the best driver in the world, so we just let him win the races. We count on that. And then after that, I mean, you have Box and Venom, which was 2nd and 4th last year. So you just have to, let them be themselves and just no pressure on them.
No pressure at all. I was going to say, for Red Bull, gives you wings. It's all about energy. And you guys are so cool, calm, and collected, I can't even handle it.
Yeah, I mean, it's not about, we're not overconfident, but just we are well prepared. I mean, we have the boot camp this week, so we are well prepared. We really worked on the cars. And then now we just have to drive.
You just have to drive, absolutely. Some other people that just have to drive, let's toss it over and learn more about Williams.
Williams brings you Roadrunner Mitch 7 and coach Stephen English. Even in the face of land caliber competition, Williams proved that they're #1 seed for a reason.
You said it, Gabby. A great performance against a stacked field yesterday. It gets even more difficult for Williams today.
Yeah, talking behind the scenes to the Williams drivers, they were more confident with their final builds than their semi-final builds. For me, it seems a little bit strange, but it means that they should be able to continue in their fine form.
But with every driver pulling their weight here, you can't not talk about Roadrunner.
He is the mechanical mastermind and has been all season, which is really an integral part to this season. We talked about it before. There's a lot of effort that goes into the builds. They've got a man like that. He can just build the cars himself.
Roadrunner plays multiple roles here. Yes, he's a builder, but this is a depth team. Remember, their strategy may not be around race wins. It's about dominating that midfield. He's been doing just that with 4th and 5th place finishes consistently.
Well, and this highlights the aspect that a lot of our drivers here today really enjoy the real-world experience that comes with automotive nature and automotive design being a focus for Roadrunner. You mentioned his participation in the build. How does that correlate as far as the in-game experience?
Well, it starts... The builds define the strategy to a large degree. So Mitch and Seven, even the coach, are looking at Roadrunner and say, where do we start? How do we approach every weekend? It starts with those.
Yeah, Forza offers like an intricate tuning and building and upgrading design when it comes to the cars. But with this championship, when we build them ourselves to test the cars to see what the teams have tried to do, there are so many different variations. To kind of nail it to one is really impressive.
Well, and their coach, Stephen English, had some wonderful words for us yesterday. I want to know how he's feeling today in comparison to that. So let's find out.
Thank you, Gabby. Of course, you guys are talking about these builds and the strategy behind it. And we know that Williams Esports had a dynamic strategy this weekend. How was it so different than the other teams?
Yesterday, we took a slightly different car choice with Mitch to help the other guys to be able to score the most points in the mid-pack. That was our route to try and win yesterday's match.
Now, you said you're having fun. He popped in here as the coach this weekend for Williams Esports, and we were talking a little bit about how these drivers kind of bring something different to the table. What is that?
Yeah, I think what's great about our team is that we've got the drivers that can fight to win all 3, if you like, groups within each race. That's going to be our aim.
Except for, I think, Sauber in that case. I think sorry on that one. I think to answer Gabby's question, I think she was kind of asking, how are you feeling for the team and the camaraderie between it?
I'm great. It's a good team. The guys have been together for more than a year and a half, so they know each other really well.
All right. That's Williams Esports. Sauber's up next.
Sauber Esports, it's Zoom, Chemical, Dave, and Coach Zimdog. Similar to what we're going to see from RBR, this is the second team with an alpha driver on their mind.
Yeah, no more experimenting for Sauber. There are no more aces up their sleeve, and they are doubling down on that Zoom strategy.
Yeah, Zoom is the key here, but of course Dave and Chemical have to deliver as well. Dave had a good day yesterday. Chemical, not so much. This is the finals, boys. All 3 have to deliver.
And that's the thing. Here in our land territory, Zoom, this is the first time he's getting that PI love, and Sauber sure are loving the results.
Yeah, I mean, talking to the drivers, they didn't put much practice into their final builds, but what they have done, they've got 212 more horsepower combined than Red Bull Racing have in their cars, and it's that classic case of race car versus pace car.
You want to focus on 2 cars today? Look at Zoom versus Lage.
That's going to be the crazy thing. When you go for an alpha strategy as far as driver, not just the build itself, there's only one first place spot. So if you end up not picking up those early, could it just be something that not just cycles you to second, but all the way to the bottom?
Yeah, and that's why qualifying matters so much, of course, because that determines obviously where you're going to start, and those first few corners are crucial. When you are looking to win the race, the first few corners mean everything.
Absolutely. I mean, and if they don't qualify well, they've got the cars to kind of make that great start, which they did yesterday, and it needs to happen again today.
And I know we were taking a look at the qualifying results there. I'm sure our casters later on are going to have more to say about that, so I'll leave that for them. For now, who we're going to hear from is Zimdog, the coach of Sauber, a mastermind behind their strategy.
Well, here you just heard it first there. Mastermind behind some truly wildcard strategies. Well, I actually heard Lazarus manager El Diablo on November the 6th said, don't sleep on Sauber. What do you think of that?
Yeah, I saw that, and I think he went back through Twitter to try and find that as well, didn't he, to tag that, so that's pretty fun. But, yeah, bit wildcard strategies, I think that's fair enough. We're doing it again today. We've got some slippery cars in a straight line, so, yeah, watch out for us off the start line like yesterday, and, yeah, same thing.
Same thing. Second verse, same as the first. Well, let me ask you this question. Zoom was at the top of those leaderboards all day yesterday. Lage, top of the leaderboards all day yesterday. We just talked about alpha racers, alpha drivers. What's today going to look like in terms of who's top of that leaderboard?
Yeah, obviously Red Bull are starting first, and we're in fourth, so that's a bit of a disadvantage. But Zoom, we're backing him. He's just as quick as Lage, so absolutely no doubts there. It's all only the qualifying, and it's only Mugello to start with. So the other tracks, he'll be right there.
And there it is. Well, guess what? We have one more of our final four to talk about, and that, of course, is Lazarus. Let's take it out.
Lazarus, Force One Racers, Rossi, Coach Rosso, another deep team that really wants to strike that level of consistency.
We've talked yesterday about the relationships these three drivers have and their coach. Strategy means everything. This is a deep team from top to bottom. Strategy, when it goes bad, it looks like week 1. When it goes well, it looks like week 7 when Lazarus beat Red Bull.
Yeah, well, Force One took the range yesterday, and talking about strategy, it's changed back to that safe option now, that most confident option that they have. They're giving all the PI to Racers. He's got the most wins for the team. He's looking strong.
When Racers has PI, he wins.
That's the thing. Racers is back in that front positioning this time around. So you're saying he has a PI. What are other statistical contributions he's made?
Yeah, you see it right here, 24 points. This is yesterday, so this is not the season. He had 24 points yesterday. He had a bunch of penalties, so he's going to be looking to correct that today, but 25% of the team's points.
I mean, his penalties were contributing from that mid-pack battling. He's not going to be looking to be there. He's looking to get out front. He's going to be battling against Lage.
Well, that's the thing. Thinking back to those moments where he was raking up those penalties in that pack part, how much of it do you think was just that environment being in that center portion of the track as opposed to any way that maybe he could have navigated it differently?
Well, two things, right? It's super intense, right? You go around tracks that are very narrow like Long Beach, and you're going against drivers like Box who, you give an inch, or if there's not an inch, he'll make an inch. You know what I mean? Like, he'll put it where you feel most uncomfortable.
We've seen this all season long with Lazarus. They give the number 1 to Force One, or they give it to Racers. Today, it's Racers' job to be the number 1.
And maybe there's something to be said about keeping the other teams on their toes, changing it up from what they saw just 24 hours prior. We have one more coach to talk to, and it's Rosso, very involved with his team.
Yeah, I think it's safe to say that somebody who would want to see it change up a little bit within the last 24 hours is Rosso with Team Lazarus Racing. I think it's interesting to talk about the fact that you guys came in 4th here. How surprised were you with that outcome?
The semis, as I said yesterday, was really about making it through. We didn't want to become, the big seed that went out or anything like that. So a lot of the focus was on, getting through safely, making sure that we're here today, for the big money. So, yeah, I mean, 4th isn't great, but it means the pressure's off.
Huh. That's a good way to be, and a little bit carefree going into that. Speaking of that, these three guys look kind of cool, calm, collected. No one's responding too much back here. What would you say individually they've brought to the team this weekend?
Ross is insanely consistent and brings, those what I call the scrap points. He's the best in the field at doing that without a doubt. Dan and Tobin probably, their flexibility. I think a big strength of ours is
really no one knows what we're going to do. I guess a lot of people would have expected us to put Tobin in the Alpha car for the semis. We didn't do that. It's gone back to the Alpha today. I think that keeps the other teams on their toes.
That's also part of the strategy there. Again, this is what this is all about, momentum and strategy, and it's time to go racing for the grand final.
Grand final of the Forza Racing Championship Invitational Series 2019, presented by Lamborghini. We've got Williams Esports, Lazarus, Red Bull Racing, Sauber racing across 4 tracks. It's a whirlwind tour around the world. Mugello is where we're going to start off, heading then to Nurburgring and then Sebring and Road America. Welcome back to the casting desk. We're going to bring you all the racing action from right here. Ali Tak with you, and joined as ever by Shay Adams. Shay, what a year it's been. What an incredible season so far. And heading into the final 4 races, what are your expectations?
Hey, buddy, I expect it to not be clean anymore. People are tired of keeping the tricks up their sleeves. We're going to see everything today. I don't expect to see a car upside down and on fire necessarily, but I wouldn't be surprised if it happens.
Everything is possible here in this final event. It's been an interesting new year for the Forza Racing Championship, not least because we've had teams for the first time in the competition. And that means strategy has come with it. Boosts, especially, are something that we're going to take a look at. These have been so important throughout the series, Shay.
This has completely changed what we're used to seeing, Ali. Every team starts off the match with 1 boost. You can use it right off the bat, or you can bank it for a little bit later. And we've seen both for the first race coming up. But how do you get more boost? Well, you pass more cars than anyone else in the race and earn the hard charger award, or you do a team effort, clean sheet, no penalties for any players on your team. Not going to happen today. Not expecting that. Perfect form means you can finish in numerical order, whether that's 9th, 10th, and 11th, or 2nd, 3rd, and 4th, doesn't matter. But that earns you 2 boosts as well. So it's going to be interesting to see how teams get these boosts and if they even bother with them today.
Well, I can tell you that a few extra horsepower will not hurt on the straight on the first track that we're going to go to. It's going to be Mugello, and wow, that is a long old run down to turn 1.
Let's go to Tuscany. Why not?
Take me to Tuscany.
It's November, beautiful time of year to go to Italy. Let's have some pizza and pasta. This track, 3.26 miles, 12 turns, built in 1973, 14 turns if you count Arrabbiata 1 and 2 separately. But, you know, for the purists out there, this is a track that is in the background of some of the big Italian manufacturers. San Donato, the first turn. If you go really late on the brakes, you can make it a late apex cut back around. But if you don't get such a good run off the line, you're going to find yourself falling back down through the ranks. This track, which we're going to be on for 8 laps, you've got enough time to make something happen. My personal favorite corners, of course, I've already mentioned them, Arrabbiata 1 and 2. That's a great opportunity if you start dropping back a bit, but it's also a great opportunity to just spear off the racetrack.
We've seen it 1,000 times with cars getting unstable through those very high-speed right-handers. It's going to come down, as always, to what the grid looks like as well, the early parts of the race. It's always very important for the drivers. But sticking on Mugello and thinking about this track a little bit more, it's a place that I've talked about a lot in Discord, in the community. I've always heard it's a place where it's fast to sort of slow into the corners, almost slower than you'd imagine, so you can get the speed out.
Very much so. It takes somebody who's got patience to do well at Mugello, because you do want to get your braking done early. You want to be able to accelerate smoothly. And the drivers who can get that done, that makes a big difference.
Right. So we've got 4 teams heading down towards T1. I think we can start making some predictions about the grid without having quite seen it just yet. And one of those, I think, is that Lage is going to be up against the likes of Mitch and the likes of, let's say, Zoom into turn 1.
Well, we know who the PI has been invested in, the points before all of this begins, before the boosts have even been assigned or thought about. We know that Zoom, Mitch, Racers, and Lage each 20 PI towards them. There's no sharing amongst the teams. It's all towards those 4 drivers. We would imagine that those would be at the 4 at the head of the grid. But the boosts, we talked about them. That's the wild card. How are those going to be thrown into effect? How are they going to be put into play? And ultimately, who's going to find themselves dropping back because they don't have that horsepower advantage?
It's such a complicated season in many ways. There's a lot of depth to how the teams plan for these events, how they plan to get their drivers to the very top of the grid and scoring those all-important race points. You've got to remember, Shay, there is a huge discrepancy between the prizes here. The winner gets $80,000, whereas second place just 45.
And third place 30, and fourth place 22.
Dwindles away.
So you've got to be feeling that pressure. You come in here and you think, okay, great, I'm going to make $22,000 for one day's work. Well, no, actually, it's thousands of laps that these drivers have been practicing, going through hundreds of configurations of builds. We heard yesterday from some of the Red Bull drivers that they thought that perhaps their competition in yesterday's semifinal, Lazarus, were sort of disregarding the semis and preparing completely for the finals. Well, the money is not on the line for the semis. It pays off today. So, of course, you're going to be practicing Mugello. You'll practice Nurburgring. You'll practice Sebring and Road America. Road America more so than any, because that's where it all comes out.
Wow, it's a great atmosphere here in the studio. We've got an amazing arena all around us. Lots and lots of people all zooming in onto their screens, and it's a place where really the drivers are faced with a whole new environment, Shay. We're looking at drivers who are used to driving at home. We spoke to THR Rich just yesterday. He was saying, I'm used to driving with music on in the room. This is a whole new thing to me. I like the music when I'm playing. There's so many people outside of their comfort zone here, and it's going to change things for them.
The thing that I love, Ali, is if somebody drives you off the track, you can actually glare at them. You can stare across and give them that evil eye to say, hey, why'd you do that? You can't do that when you're sitting in your house in Germany and they're in their house in New Jersey. That's a very long stare.
That's right. You spend a little bit less time typing Xbox Live messages to each other after the races. This way you can just go and do it face to face. There's the Lazarus team right in front of us there. You can see Races on the left, and that's Force One in the middle and Rossi on the right.
Should we give them paper airplanes to throw at one another between the races, write out messages?
That's right. Come in front and show the class. Big thumbs up there from Races before the race kicks off. We're looking at the Sauber team now with Chemical on the right, zooming in on Davy's skills. New father, or expecting father, as Merch would say, which is lovely to hear. And the final member of the Sauber team is Zoom, of course, who did a fantastic job yesterday in the semis. That's a little look at the Red Bull Racing team here.
Yep, get a view of Venom, the man who has been the least loved member of that team so far this year. He did get some help yesterday as far as boosts were concerned, but just the one who's sort of expected to go along. Box now on our screen, number 2 in the world to this man last year, Lage.
That's right, the world #1 driver from 2018. He's a very, very fast individual on track. It's difficult to find your way around Lage on the circuit, and well, Shay, I think a lot of the strategy, a lot of the stuff we were just talking about, really, for a lot of the other teams, will come down to how do we get past this guy and how do we stop him from scoring that big 20 points for taking the win race on race on race.
Yesterday, Red Bull and Lazarus were the last 2 teams to make it in. Sauber and Williams had an opportunity to sit back and figure out who was going to be joining Red Bull because it was assumed they would be in it anyway. I'm wondering if the other 3 teams up on the stage maybe have a plan to take out Lage.
Well, you got a chance for us to wave at you, got a chance to see the arena, but it's now time to move towards that first race. Let's take a look at the grid at Mugello. It's going to be Red Bull Racing who take the top seed. There was a qualifying event prior to the stream. They topped the results, got the best grid positions, and have allocated their drivers into those spots.
No boost. That's the first thing that's standing out at me. So they are banking. They are keeping their boost for a later date. Perhaps they're not expecting to earn any more. An interesting choice, putting Venom in the Huracan race car further back down the grid. I wonder if he might be able to get a hard charger, though.
Shadowboxing then from Red Bull Racing, playing the long game perhaps. The second team on this grid will be Lazarus, the bright pink team that we saw previously. That's Racers up on the front row of the grid, joining Lage. But the big difference there is the orange lightning strike beside his name, denoting that he has the advantage of a boost.
And very different car choices as well. We have the Centenario for Lage and the Aventador with the boost for Racers. He's going to be very, very racy early on.
It's going to be an absolutely brilliant battle, this, and I can't wait to get going. There's 2 more teams to introduce. We've got Williams Esports. They were #1 seed coming into the LAN event. They've done a great job to make it to the Sunday, and here they are with their first setup, their first strategy play. It's going to be Mitch up on 3rd position on this grid with his teammates Roadrunner and Seven just behind.
Mitch with the heaviest car on the grid, but he does have the boost advantage and he does have the 20 PI towards his car, so that will help. And again, Seven, like Rossi and like Venom in the back of the grid, in the race car. I don't understand why all the race cars are starting at the back.
This is going to be so interesting to watch. We've got Sauber running their 3 cars out on track. They did such a classy job yesterday. Zoom winning so many races, and once again we can say that he's up there at the front. He's got the benefit of a boost.
And the 20 PI entirely in Zoom's car. I really like Chemical though, being the Veneno in the middle of the field. That's going to be a great car. He's the only one of those running in today's races, so that is a very fun guy to watch.
All right, well, this has been all about strategy, all about that top-level game, but when we look at the one-on-ones, you've got to win your head-to-heads, and this is going to be a huge one. Front row of the grid, RBR Lays stacking up against Lazarus Racers.
Racers hasn't been the guy that they have trusted entirely. It's been a very fair share from Lazarus all year long. All 3 of their drivers are capable of going out, winning races, and proving that Lazarus is the best team in the business. Lage has been undisputed their #1 guy. 80 points. He hasn't run every race, but he has won just about all of them.
I'll tell you what, an uneasy silence is setting over the arena here at Burbank in Los Angeles as all the drivers zone in and get ready for that power down on the grid and the run down towards lap 1. We're corner 1. We're on board with Williams 7 running from the back of the field in that Lamborghini Huracan Super Trofeo up the inside of LZR Rossi and fishing around for a line there. Rossi well wide, but maybe able to hold it as we run up to the 2 sets of chicanes that mark the first sector here at Mugello. Rossi very much taking up a lot of track there, Shay, and getting a little greedy. 7 leaning on him and saying, you're going to have to give me some space.
Yep, and that was fair from both drivers because it was the expectation put out there by one and the answer put out there by the other. Rossi ultimately holding on to that 11th spot and 7 falling back to the final spot on the grid. Lage is our leader, but he is not getting away from Racers as Racers still clear sight with the target locked on ahead of him.
Running down the hill now. We're going to go uphill through that double right-hander. It's Shay's favorite corner, this Arrabbiata complex. 2 very fast, sweeping uphill right-handers. You'll feel the compression in the front of the car. The springs loading up, the extra grip that gradient gives you. And 7 up the inside once again of Rossi. Tries it for a second time of asking. This time round, it looks like he can make it stick, while Chemical in the Veneno gets in the way, and 7 denied.
Chemical being an unintentional roadblock there, a moving chicane for the 2 guys behind him. Now, Chemical is a more than capable driver. He can hold his own, 27 years old from England, a financial analyst in the real world, but he's somebody known for muscle cars. This is a different experience.
Well, from the back of the pack, let's jump into that middle pack. It's going to be Force 1 running in 6th position. It's the second running Lazarus looking up the road towards Red Bull Racing's box. I will say both these drivers are in the same car, but it's a very different build.
Force 1 is actually in the lightest car in the entire field, Ali, coming into today's race #1. But his biggest enemy on track has been the car in front of him. That's Red Bull Racing's box. His box locks up going into the first turn. Force 1's going to see an opportunity here, Ali.
This Force 1, we saw the nose of Roadrunner there just peeking onto the inside of Force 1 and saying, okay, I can see you're hungry for 5th position, I can see you're hungry for more points, but if you slip up, if you trip on that tightrope, there's going to be someone behind ready to take up the mantle of 6th position, and we'll be more than happy to do that. Up the road from Force 1, we can see a battle going on, and that's between 3 drivers for 2nd place. Mitch, Zoom, and Racers, all with the benefit of a boost, and that's a big puff of smoke there. It's coming from Zoom's car, running very wide. This has been a absolutely incredible battle. Let's hop on board with Mitch as they run 2 wide through Arrabbiata 1. Mitch makes it stick. The Centenario doing a beautiful job there of sticking to that corner.
This is disaster for 2nd, 3rd, and 4th. Yes, they're swapping places left, right, and center, but they're allowing Lage to run away. Guys, work together, be smooth, wait to fight it out. You've got 8 laps of this race. Don't let Lage run away in lap #2.
Let's take a look at how things would work out if the checkered flag fell now. It's not going to fall. Lap 2 of 8. We've still got 6 laps to go. If the checkered flag fell right now, Shay, Red Bull Racing, they're doing a great job, 32 points.
They are, because these three back here are being a bit of monkeys and they're not paying attention to the fact that Red Bull Racing is running away with it right now. They need to calm down, regroup. This is when the coaches come into play, Ali. The coaches can see all of their drivers. They can see the timing, where everybody is, and they can now see that on the left side of your screen, it's more than 500 feet of an advantage for Lays over second, third, and fourth.
Let's get into the crutch of that battle between Red Bull Racing and Lazarus. It's the battle for 5th position between Box and Force One. The pink team and the dark blue team coming up against each other on track right here in front of our eyes as Force One looks around through the chicanes. You can see with the benefit of that big rear spoiler, the Hurricane, this is the road car rather than the Super Trofeo car, has a lot more cornering, and Force One will have the advantage. Drives it round the outside of the chicane, bumps into the side of Box, but that is going to be good enough, I suspect, to make the move stick, and Force One demotes Box back into 6th position.
There's a slight round of applause in the studio after that motion. Yes, a much lighter car for Force One, even though they are identical, different builds. They've used their aero differently, and Force One with the big rear wing able to get the power down a little bit easier. And now Venom taking a look up at the inside of his teammate through RB out of 1. Venom up to 6th and given the task to go try and track down Force One.
But you get the feeling the Box made that easy for his teammate. At the same time, just after being overtaken by Force One, it won't feel good for Box, who's slipping down the order now as we enter the mid-race. We head to lap 3 and 8. Red Bull Racing perhaps starting to get a little bit of a less of a stranglehold in this race.
Box was just feeling how I did the other day, Ali, when you said you don't listen to Adele. He's trying to reach the knife plunged into the middle of his back, and it's just a little bit short. So Box falling all the way down to 7th. Red Bull now 1st, 6th, and 7th. Whereas where you look at Lazarus, 2nd, 5th, and 8th.
Let's get on board with Box straight away. We've jumped back just a position. It's going to be 2 positions because LZR Rossi has got up the inside, passed through, and that is the Hurricane Super Trofeo that Rossi is running. And as this race goes on, as it pushes on, Rossi is heating up. You can see how much, though, that GT car, it's a racing car with a homologated engine, how much it lacks on the straights.
Rossi is in the race car. Rossi is in the 2016 version of the Huracan race car. This is a Dallara-built, purpose-built race car, but the aero in the straight means that it is a lot less nimble in a straight line. Very good through the curvy bits, though, and that's where Rossi's going to flourish and be able to pass these two back just as long as he can stay close enough.
Let's hop forward just momentarily and check in with 3rd place runner Mitch, who's been given a 3-second post-race penalty for running into Zoom, running him out of road. Repeatedly, I'm hearing. So Mitch with a very stout defense of his last step on this podium, and it has not paid off. It's reached the other side of adjudication.
Yeah, but it's not the first time that this sort of behavior has come from Mitch. He had a meteoric rise to fame last year. He was legendary, but he did ruffle a lot of feathers, and the mechanic from England is known for being a bit harsh out on the track. Good to see he's maintaining that reputation at least, Ali.
Let's jump back to that wild battle we were just on board with. It's been fantastic to watch between Rossi, Roadrunner, and Box. 3 drivers who have such a celebrated history in the Forza Racing Championship. They've been around for a long time. They know each other well. They've raced each other a lot of times. And here we are in race number 1, and they're putting on a fantastic display. Rossi lacking that top end in the GT car, but the other two very much less fast in the corners.
Well, it's not that he's lacking the top end, Ali. It's that he has more downforce, so he can't actually go as fast on the fast bits, but he's been held up by the slower cars through the twisties, and it's going to be a noticeable difference as they come on the straight. Box and Roadrunner are going to disappear.
Yeah, gauging light speed there. Roadrunner and Box just heading off into the merry distance, and for a couple of corners, I suspect, through Sector 1, they'll have that gap against Rossi. A puff of smoke, it looked like, from Box there, who runs a shade wide through T1. Not an opportunity for Roadrunner, but I suspect that the car just up ahead will be fishing around, will be thinking he can smell weakness. RR, of course, up the road is Roadrunner. I keep referring to him as that. That's his previous game tag.
It just ran out of characters, I think was all it was.
Right, I think so.
Now, this is interesting. Williams RR and Red Bull Racing Box going at it back and forth, side to side. They've slowed each other up through the twisty bits where their cars are intrinsically less strong, and it's opened the door back up for Rossi, who's peeking a nose at the inside.
straight through and sluices by Roadrunner there. It was a classy move. It looked like caught Roadrunner napping a little bit with a wide line on the corner entry. Rossi now looking around. He tried it around the outside of Arrabbiata 1. It won't work out. It's going to have so much more downforce with the benefit of that massive splitter the Super Trofeo has. He's going to have so much more grip through the corners. This is a fascinating battle that we're seeing here, but we are seeing the fight a little bit up the road as well that we can check in with just very briefly. It's between Venom and Force 1. If you remember, Box released Venom earlier in the race. He let him by, and now Venom has managed to close that gap up to Force 1 in 5th.
It's not actually a real fight though, Ali, because as you see, the 1 second penalty hanging over Force 1, FRR coming into effect, means that Venom doesn't have to pass him on track, just has to stay within 0.09 of a second. It'll be good.
Well, this battle will continue monitoring, but let's jump backwards just one step because things are getting crazy just behind. Rossi is defending against an entire pack of cars. We know they've got more top end on the straight. They are going to filter on by. Box makes it look easy, but Rossi has worked his way by, and 7 catching up to this battle as well. It's a 4-way fight for 7th position.
It's the problem with having a car with more downforce, Ali. As soon as you get to the straight, it doesn't matter how well you've done to get around the guys behind you. They're going to pass you back. And it's such a long run out of the final turn to the finish line. Rossi, he might be able to get the positions through the twisties, but as soon as we come to the checkered flag, holding off the guys behind him, he's going to have to do some serious magic.
Beautiful synchronized driving there from 7 Roadrunner as he slipped by in the first chicane. 7 with the benefit of that very, very light, very high downforce racing car will, I'm sure, have a big old advantage against Box especially, coming through these high-speed corners. It's the same car Rossi's running, and I believe in the same spec.
Yes, I think you're correct. The weight is just slightly different between the two of them.
Wow.
It's interesting to see, though, that Sauber and Williams both bringing down the timing screen. You've got Williams in 9th and 10th, and Sauber in 11th and 12th. That's not what I was expecting to see.
7 picking a lane there and putting a tap onto Box, who was already unstable. It looked like 7 was biding his time and waiting for an opportunity. He's going to get into the rear of Box again here, who tries to siphon back into that racing line. It's so difficult, Shay. When you're driving in a pack, when there's cars all around you, it can be hard if you get offline to find your way back on.
Yeah, and 7 needs to be careful because Roadrunner right behind him, Williams RR, there was a moment where we could see the nose of RR. You really don't want to take out someone else, but you really, really don't want to take out your teammate.
Four-wheel drive Lamborghinis, especially Box's Huracan, can take a little bit more of contact than some other cars. They're able to absorb more from it. You don't have just the rear tires flaring up. I will say though, this is interesting. As a test run for the finish, wow, wow! As Davey Skills takes to the hard shoulder and the grass there to try and make a move. Massive moment. That's a huge moment. He also got the top 3 separated by no time at all up at the front.
They finally starting to reel back into Lage. Our racers and Mitch, there's about just under 400 feet between first and second, but second and third with a very intense battle going on as we are now on lap 7 of 8. As the points as they run have Red Bull with 32, Lazarus with 26. We have seen it as low as a 5-point gap before, but if Williams 7 can get around Red Bull Box, that's going to help Team Pink even more.
It's been a scrappy race. It's been a hard-fought race. And looking at the points now as we head through lap 7 of 8, things are beginning to swing back towards Lazarus. Red Bull would still walk away with the advantage after race 1. I'd say that as 7 goes round the outside of Box, making use of all the grip in that Huracan Super Trofeo. As that happens, Red Bull's advantage and Red Bull's grasp on this race slips back slightly, although we can expect Box, we can expect him to slip on past 7 on the start-finish straight.
Well, it depends how far ahead 7 is when they came out of the last turn. I learned on the last lap that Rossi was far enough ahead to maintain position, and now Lazarus Racers drops back a position, so Williams getting a big points advantage. They need Roadrunner. He has to be desperate to get around Box right now. The points are so close, and we are on this final lap of race number 1. You've got one more circuit around Mugello to make a move. or to think about it all winter.
Well, let's check in with that battle at the front. It's a battle for second place, with Lage having checked out. Racers chasing on behind Williams. Mitch, keep in mind, earlier in this race, for putting up some blocking that was deemed unfair by adjudication, Mitch has picked up a 3-second post-race penalty. So LZR Racers, who's tucked up in this slipstream, following him through, will only have to be within 3 seconds of Mitch in order to get that second spot. It's not a big ask, but it is very important for context as we run through this final lap.
For sure. So the points when they cross the finish line will not dictate the points when they come out for the analyst test. So you will have to stay tuned to find out where everybody finishes. We've got discrepancy in the first 4 cars on track. They are from all 4 teams, but further down throughout the field, there's a lot less mixing up going on.
Well, this man has been the story of the Forza Racing Championship so far. Absolutely dominant from RBR Lage, who's led from pole position. He did a fantastic job in qualifying, did a fantastic job in the semi-finals, and once again proving his class here in the Forza Racing Championship Grand Finals, presented by Lamborghini. RBR Lage will power down and head towards that start-finish line to take 20 points for Red Bull Racing in race number 1. Perfect start for Red Bull.
It was, and even though Mitch crosses the line in second with that penalty, he will drop back 1, maybe even 2 places. I'm very impressed with the performance that we saw from Lazarus coming home in the what will be 2nd, 6th, and 7th positions. Williams underperformed slightly in that one, 8th and 9th for 7 and RR, but Red Bull, they didn't do a team job. Venom in the 5th position, but then all the way back to 10th for Box.
Here's Box himself, 10th place runner provisionally at least. Penalties will be assessed after the race. Race times will be moved forwards and backwards. There was a little bit of fighting off camera, Shay, with Mitch getting into Zoom. Was there anything else you saw in that first race that you think is going to change the order coming in to the points?
I can't say on that, Ali. What I'm looking at from what we've just seen for the races moving forward, for our next race, it's another one that has a lot of technicalities. That's going to favor the Lamborghini of Rosso, for example. We saw that he was very good, Rossi, excuse me, he was very good through those twisty bits. He's going to be a strong runner as we move forward.
Well, one team which maybe will be looking at that first race and thinking, how could we have done better, was one who got a penalty for their top runner. It's Williams, and Kate Yeager is with Stephen English, their coach.
Okay, Stephen, it's got to be one of the things here that comes to mind. First off, you are the person that has to convey penalties. Want to talk me through what just happened here, and more importantly, how you approach that kind of a conversation mid-race?
Firstly, in the race, I thought it was pretty 50-50. I think Mitch and Zoom were giving each other an elbow around, and that's all part of it. So obviously, we're going to say from our perspective that penalty is quite harsh. Watching the race, you take a look at all the incidents that are happening, and if there's something that we feel needs to be raised, then we'll raise it to adjudication and see what they say.
Very good point here. Now let's talk about the severity overall. You just mentioned it's a bit severe for yourself from your perspective. The fact that it can be something that could potentially affect the overall standings, how does that play into your mentality going forward?
It's tough. I think when you saw the end of that race before the penalty, there was only 1 point difference, I think, between us and Lazarus, and it's going to be different now. So it can make a really big difference, but it's hard for that to change the way the guys drive. In a race, they're going to try and pass people. They're going to try and score points and win races.
And we saw a lot of that, of course, during this last race. Final question is, with so many eyes on 1 through 4, what does the overall podium look like if you're just going to be focused on the team aspect? Since you've got 3 people in the field, are you focused on 1 through 4, or are you looking at this from an overall perspective?
No, it's not just 1 to 4. This is going to be decided by the racing all the way down the field. And I don't know what the broadcast was showing, but in the last couple of laps there, Roadrunner and 7 picked up a couple of really important places, and those are going to be the points that I think decide the podium in the end.
I'll tell you something, Roadrunner beep beep is what we were saying back there, because it was impressive. Stephen English, thank you so much. Head it back to you guys.
You're saying beep beep. You know what I got to say? Bruh, race number 1.
Yeah, no.
We wanted excitement, but that I feel like even surpassed the expectations we had for what could go down right off the bat.
We've seen a slow ramping up of aggression throughout the weekend, right? Remember match 1 yesterday was fairly clean. Everybody was quite polite. And then Lightning gets in there and things start ramping up. He said he was aggression 9.0 level. Here we are, race number 1 of the day. Things are happening. These guys are making contact.
Someone just poured petrol on a bonfire. That's what that happened. This is how race 1 went down. Super tough between Williams Esports. This was the early on couple of first laps. Racers and Mitch get into it, going side to side. Now, what you got to remember is when you make contact, the cars kind of slightly stick together. Mugello's so tight. You got to navigate around. It's not ideal. Zoom gets in on the battle. This is where the penalty comes in with Zoom, with Mitch getting that 3-second penalty. Zoom gave him no room there. Zoom gave him absolutely no room whatsoever. Mitch feels he's been penalized. He's going to do it back.
And look right there, Zoom had 2.5 of FRR penalties, 2.5 seconds of FRR penalties right there. So there's penalties happening everywhere here, whether it's contact adjudicated or deemed by FRR.
If Zoom is doing something, he knows he has to do. This is what Sauber were banking on. He needs to get out in front. These are these desperation moves we're talking about. But if Mitch feels penalized because of it, he's just going to do it back to him.
And that's the thing. We talked about how important it is to look at those top 4 grid positions because half the teams here are going for the alpha driver strategy. So when you get penalties on top of that, it kind of negates the effort that you're putting and the emphasis on that podium point positioning.
Which makes me wonder what the coaches are telling them in that moment of like, my guess is these guys are saying, you know what, forget what's happening with the lead driver. Everybody's obviously trying to get as many points as possible, but they're trying to adjust on the fly.
And we do have our race results in after that first one. So this is how everything ended up going down on the track. All of that tension that was happening with the other racers also allowed Lage to just pull way ahead into that number 1 spot, exactly where he wants to be.
Yeah, I mean, that late pass that Mitch had on racers kind of moved to this point. He resumes that 3rd spot. But even though he got a 3-second penalty, which is his first penalty of this championship, he still remains on the podium.
It was great news for racers, but Zoom, those FRR penalties again meant that even though Mitch had that 3-second penalty, he still finishes behind him. Disaster for the Sauber team because Zoom finishes in 4th, Chemical and Davey back in 11th and 12th.
Yeah, we need to see more from Chemical. Chemical was one of the drivers to pit in the semi-finals. He hasn't pitted this time, but it's still right at the back of the pack. I think it's going to be really close between Lazarus and Red Bull for those top 2 points going into race 2.
Well, with the aggression we were talking about at the front of the pack, there was just as much happening in the back. I think it was, I don't remember if it was Chemical or Dave that we saw, but at one point just completely running into it with the remaining drivers.
I mean, we talked about this. Sauber put all their points into power. So they're gunning up the main straight. The cars are terrible everywhere else. I'm just going to point that out. But on the straight, that's all he's got, and he's got nowhere to go. He's got nowhere to go.
And look at Venom up here with the Hard Charger Award, starting in 9th place all the way up to 5th. Great result. Maybe not the points that Venom wanted to score, actually a good points haul, but also a crucial boost that they're going to get out of it.
Yeah, and they're definitely going to supply that to Lage. Absolutely. They're going for that another 20 points.
Box, on the other hand, dropped from 5 to 10, though, after some of that mid-pack tension.
Yeah, a lot of contact between there. You saw at one point, I think, Box let Venom around him. So, again, working that strategy. Here, get another position, and hopefully you'll get that hard charge.
Yeah, but he's frustrating other teams in the meantime. You saw that unnecessarily braking in the mid-track. Roadrunner was getting frustrated, allowed Venom up the inside. That's great for his team, but these teams are going to get really aggressive with him soon.
Let's find out if that team prioritization was enough for the points kind of game here. We got 30 into RBR's pocket, 26 for Lazarus, 19 for Williams, and 11 for Sauber there in the number 4 spot. So still only a 4-point spread between first and second.
Yeah, that's insane. I knew it was going to be close between the top 2. It's all still to play for by all 4 teams because it is huge chunks of prize pool that each position gives you.
Look at that provisional. The provisional results had Williams and Lazarus more or less tied. This is a huge swing based on those penalties.
It's 4 points, but also Red Bull are going into the next race with that boost.
We've had so much to say over here on the desk, not just for you in the audience, but during the game itself. And we do have our 2 pro drivers for a little bit of that extra perspective standing on by with Kate Osborne.
We've already introduced Corey Lewis here today with Lamborghini IMSA driver, but we also have Charlie Martin, who's back with us here to give another pro perspective on what we're seeing here, not only in the semifinals, but now the grand finals. Welcome to this show in particular, Charlie, but more, what did you see in that first race?
Mugello is a track where the speed is relentless and the driving action was relentless too. Lage, textbook Lage, capitalizing on the battle behind him, pulling out a clean set of heels. But for me, it's that battle in the mid-pack between Lazarus and Red Bull. Just like we saw in the last race yesterday, two Lazarus drivers carving their way through Venom and Box. And for me, that's where the points could really be decided.
And as we know, this really is a points game, especially as we're determining the winning team. For you, Corey, what differences did you see? Was it that mid-pack battle, or perhaps it was the conversation, if you will, between maybe the upper top three?
Honestly, like I said in the top of the show, it's going to be a team effort. I think the mid-pack battles are where the points are going to be determined for the overall championship. As you saw in the first race here, it all came down to the last lap. And again, we keep talking about Red Bull and their dominance there, but if we can see if Lage can continue that battle up front, and the rest of the teams can go from there. But overall, I think the points there in the middle of the pack are where it's going to be at.
Car-wise, what was your take on it?
Honestly, I thought the Trofeo car was a strong choice. We saw that the straight line speed may not have been the best, but it showed that the mid-corner speed was there. Obviously, with the all-wheel drive cars, they're able to get out of the corners better, but the mid-corner speed, I think, of the Trofeo car was dominant to an extent there. So we'll see what the rest of the races hold up.
So we were talking, Charlie, earlier about the consistency. Of course, we know this is all about teams, but the consistency is key between these drivers in order to get those team points. How do you see that coming together?
Well, I mean, the last race yesterday in the semi-finals, we saw a lot of penalties being handed out, and already the action today is looking pretty wild on track. So a few penalties coming in that race. The drivers need to keep their heads together. Everybody, I mean, you can feel the concentration up there. It's palpable, and that's when those little chinks in the armor start to occur and people slip, people make a wild move. We saw Davey Skills throwing it down the outside into turn one there. The guys have got to keep it together if they're going to avoid those penalties and keep consistent. This is a team race.
Yeah, totally. The penalties are so key here. And, you know, yesterday, Charlie and I had the opportunity to talk about, like, when you're kind of in the zone, you get your helmet on, you're behind the wheel, what you're really thinking and feeling in those moments. How do you think these guys are feeling, and maybe what's going on in their minds?
Well, it all comes down to this. I mean, they run all year long, and then come down to the Final Four in a sense, and I get it. There's a lot of tension. There's a lot of money on the line. All the hard work comes down to these Final Four races. So I can only imagine what each of the drivers are going through. I think a piece of advice, I guess I would say, is just try to be as consistent as you possibly can. And honestly, they always say try to be perfect inside the race car there. So you're always trying to hit your braking points, your apexes, making sure you get the good runs out. It's going to come down to perfection, I think, at the end of this.
Perfection, momentum, no penalties. Ali, Shay, I don't even know anymore. What else?
Wow, okay. Well, thanks for that insight, such incredible insight into the mentality of drivers. And Shay, you know, we talk a lot about the teams here in the Forza Racing Championship. It's a team competition. But those rivalries you see between particular drivers, wow, they've defined the action on track sometimes.
Yeah, they really do. And I wrote little notes earlier on before the day began. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 of our 12 drivers considered their biggest enemy to be somebody else in the room. So that's a little bit fun. And somebody not on their team, by the way. There were a couple more who said that their biggest competitors were their teammates. Yeah, we'll let you go on that one for today because you guys are going to be sharing money at the end of the day. But it's just interesting when that sort of tension starts to flare, and we did see tension flare lap 1 of the last race.
That's right. We saw so much tension acting out on track. The one that I was thinking about, the one in particular that I had my mind on was Mitch and Zoom. It happened off camera, but a penalty being picked up there, and immediately, because it happened in race 1, there are 3 more races remaining for this thing to build, and bad blood can happen pretty easily.
The problem is, Ali, they're going to be around each other the whole time. They're in the same cars. They're in the same performance index. They've been given the same responsibility. And it's these 3 drivers at the front. Well, 4 drivers, really. Lage just ran away without the boost. But the 3 drivers who are given the boost, given the added pressure. It's all on you, buddy. Go do it. Go do it. And then, of course, you know, they weren't able to get around one another on pure pace. There was contact. It got awkward. That's just going to keep developing. It's going to keep festering.
All right, well, the huge cauldron of delicious racing is bubbling away, and the plot is thickening within that cauldron, to continue my metaphor. And the next place that we're going to go is going to be the Nurburgring. It's the GP circuit. This is a fantastic track, I think, and it's going to be interesting to see how the dynamic between the cars changes as we head to a new circuit.
Yep, 3.2 miles, 16 turns. This track, which was initially built in 1984, reconfigured in 2002, little bits of it, and it is part of the Nurburgring 24-hour race, which also incorporates the Nordschleife, so a very long circuit that this is just a tiny little piece of. You've got the Yokohama S, turn 1, very difficult corner to get right because you can get lured into a false sense of security. It's a very wide corner that funnels down and does lead to a lot of drama, particularly on turn 1. Halfway around the lap, you find the Michael Schumacher S. It's a really good spot to stick your nose out, to make the intent for the move, but it doesn't always work. And then finally, toward the back end of the track, turns 13 and 14, the NGK chicane, a particular part of the track that Evan got very wrong in the Forza Friday, blew a very fast lap, and that can happen at any point around the track, but particularly at this chicane.
Yeah, that last chicane is always a good spot for a dive bomb, as many people who play Forza in the public lobbies will know. It's a brilliant track, and one where you head down towards a very tight right-hand turn 1. The race order on the grid doesn't always reflect the race order coming out of that corner. Nonetheless, it is super important, and here we are looking at the grid straight away. Red Bull Racing with that top seed, electing to put Lage on the front row of the grid.
No surprise there.
No surprise.
The fact that he's got a boost gives everybody else a little bit of indigestion going into this race. You feel like it might already be a lost cause. Box again in the middle, and Venom starting at the back, once again going for a consecutive hard charger.
Okay, we saw Lazarus take on Red Bull in that first race, couldn't get around them. Racers is going to try it again up on that front row of the grid beside Lage, and hoping with the benefit of that boost to get on by him.
Starting on the outside here means that he will have the advantage going into turn 2 if he can hold up with Lage, but that's the big if. Rossi, once again in the race car in the back, he tied for the hard charger, which means he needs to get one more position than he did last time to try and earn that added boost.
You can always get that boost from the mid-pack, help your team out at the front. Williams Esports know that as much as anybody else. No boosts for these guys, but you can see their strategy in the way they've laid their cars on the grid.
And I'm not going to assume anything, Allie, because we know what happens when you assume. But Mitch, starting in 3rd, I can guess who's going to be starting in 4th, which means fireworks will be going off once again.
That's right. I can hear that cauldron bubbling right now. We can check out Sauber, and I think there he is. It's going to be Zoom up there on the front, on the 4th place, looking forward up the road towards somebody who got very much into his car in Mugello. Further down the field, Davey Skills and Chemical will be starting from 8th and 12th. We saw a pretty wild move from Davey Skills at Mugello, hoping that his luck can change as we head into the second race.
Bubble, bubble, toil and trouble. It's coming, Allie. The start of the race is pretty soon. Now that we know how the grid lines up, I'm interested, though, that they swapped Davey Skills and Chemical around. So Chemical now starting from the absolute back in the Veneno.
That is fascinating. Well, let's check out a head-to-head before we go into this race. And, of course, we're going to have a look at Mitch and Zoom. On-track rivals and two people who've had a very similar role historically within their teams.
They have, but Zoom this year has been held back. He hasn't been given the go, run off and hide. With Williams, all 3 of their drivers getting wins this year, all 3 of their drivers given their moment in the sun. Today is Zoom's moment to shine. Will he? Well, we'll just have to wait and find out.
The two of them are two faces, brows furrowed, if you like.
Brows burrowed.
Brows, yeah, I can't work out how it was the other way. Brows burrowed, I guess. It's Williams 7. Let's hop on board with him and stop thinking about that as we head down towards turn 1. It's going to be the Lamborghini Huracan Super Trofeo that he put to such excellent use in race number 1. Double overtake with one of the Lazarus drivers. That's Rossi getting into Chemical on the outside of T1. That tight right-hander living up to its reputation as being a tough place to navigate when you've got a pack of cars around you. That's 3 wide up ahead through the turn 1, the turn 2-3 complex, the Mercedes Arena. And it looks like Force 1, who we can jump on board with, is going to get away with that, pushing up through that mid-pack Here he is side by side with Box, and that all-important overtake between Lazarus and Red Bull Racing. You know that every time a pink car passes a blue car, those Lazarus drivers are going to feel rallied, they're going to feel good.
Whether it's light blue or dark blue, as a matter of fact, Ali, because dark blue representing Red Bull Racing, light blue for Williams, and it's Sauber Zoom up ahead of Williams Mitch for now, but Lage leading the way once more with the boost advantage dictated by that lightning bolt next to his name. Racers in second with the lightning bolt next to his, and those two have pulled clear of the pack.
These two are looking like they're going to be in a race of their own, battling in the clouds above the rest of them as we head here through the Nurburgring. It's a brilliant circuit as we go back towards the it'll be a right-hander beyond the chicane that takes us away from the Nordschleife, and sometimes I think
Let's just go left.
Just went left.
Let's just go left. Who's going to notice? That's the problem with in-game though, Ali. If you try to turn left, the tire barrier won't just gently move as perhaps it would in real life with a little bit of horsepower assist and V12 engine assist. It will stop your car completely. So we come back around, looping to the right and come through to complete lap number 1.
Now let's hop back towards a short way to Roadrunner and Davy Skills, who are having a battle in that mid-pack. It's Williams up against Sauber, mirroring that rivalry that we've seen between Zoom and Mitch happening at the front of the field, and Roadrunner releases the brakes there and uses the side panel of Sauber Davy Skills Lamborghini just to decelerate his car through turn 1. I wonder if the favor will be repaid as we head here through the Mercedes arena. Neat and tidy, and butter wouldn't melt for Davy Skills, who files back a position into 8th and says, I'll take this fight another day, and won't push it for now, and looks for the inside. No gap given by Roadrunner, who has a stout defense there.
Davy Skills with 3/4 of a second penalty hanging over his head, even though there's been a lot of collisions, and now Venom wants a piece of this too. Goes around the outside of Davy Skills, tries to go up the inside of Roadrunner. They're going to be 3 wide into the chicane.
I loved the confidence of Venom's move around the outside there. It was beautiful. Put me in mind of a move that RDE Hydra put on through the Arabiatas in the qualifying competition for the LAN event. Hydra didn't make it here, but certainly his spirit alive in the way that Venom is driving as he chases that car through the Schumacher S is such a brilliant left-right corner, and a tribute to such an amazing force in motorsport.
Rossi now getting by Davy Skills, and 7 wants a piece of this too. A terrible lap for Sauber as their drivers are now down in 11th and 12th, with Zoom still holding down the 4th and 3rd.
Looking at this battle, Venom is on fire. We can hop forward to him as he begins to threaten Roadrunner. The Lamborghini Super Trofeo, we knew that this was a Huracan which had a homologated engine. It didn't necessarily have the power at the top of its rev range with all the extra aero, all the extra drag to compete in a straight line against the road cars. But at the same time, it's been so fast through the corners that it makes up for it. We may see Roadrunner pull away here, but I suspect Venom will be back to fight another day once we get into the twistiest section of the track. That's Mitch up the inside of Zoom in turn 1.
And across the line, Ali, it was too close to call. They were actually identical because side by side going into turn 1, Williams Mitch now claiming the 3rd position. But these two, we've already seen what sort of sparks can come out of them. These guys are going to cause a forest fire if they keep going at this range.
Zoom wild and loose on the way out of that first sector. Ran a little bit wide through the back of the track. Doesn't look like he's going to get a penalty for it, but you can easily pick up a penalty there for extending the circuit. No advantage received is the way that the adjudication room has gone, and Zoom continues to chase. We've got Kate Osborne with a little bit more detail though on the guy we're running on board with.
We knew the competition was heating up, especially between Mitch and Zoom. Taking it back to race number 1, I talked to Mitch a little bit about what he saw. He said, well, racers held him out wide and Zoom came around and overtook him. He said, if I should get the penalty, so should he. Well, in talking to Zoom, he says, it's a little bit of a different story. It's a bit of a cat and mouse. He says he doesn't understand what kind of racecraft this is between Mitch and him. He said he actually did push him off. He deserves that penalty. So this is the mentality right now between these two drivers going head to head.
Well, it's amazing to hear, and another thing that's amazing to hear is a V12 engine raring away. What do you say? What do you say, Shay? What do you reckon? What do you make of this thing?
Normally aspirated 6.5 liter engine that pumps out 759 brake horsepower. Yes, please. Can we get a little bit more of that, please, Santa Claus?
rolling through the midpoint in this race, and Lage so far has led from pole position. It's been a fantastic run for him, and once again, he's so used to leading from the front. This time, though, for my money, Shay, he's being challenged. He's being chased very closely by racers in the LZR bright pink Lamborghini.
Yeah, Racers, the young Englishman who's been known as a package deal with Force One, is actually reeling in Lage little by little. The gap going never more than 250 feet between the two Lamborghinis. They're running very different aero packages on these kits, which means that down the straight, Lage does have a slight advantage, but when it gets twisty, that shifts towards Racers. And when we get to the next track, Ellie, Sebring, it might just be favor Racers.
Such a great year for LZR Racers. It's been previous years he's been running maybe 10th to 20th in the finals, and suddenly up at the top of the pack, racing with the very best, and it's been amazing to see. You can see there is nobody faster than Lage. There's no further limit to how quick Forza drivers get. And you can see how close Racers is now to that ultimate pace that's being put down by the very fastest drivers in the world. Brilliant to see.
Both of them running on pretty equal footing when you consider it 20 PI points per driver. They're both in the same car. They're both running the boost advantage, but it's still Lage leading the way. Now the advantage nearly 300 feet as they jump on the brakes and dive into the right-hander that is turn one. Racers closing the gap and locking up a little bit. He's gonna have to do better than that.
You can correct a little bit with these four-wheel drive cars using the handbrake, and I wonder whether Racers might have had a tap there when he saw how quickly he was coming into that apex. This battle is going to be fascinating as we head into the second half of this race. Another battle that's going to be fascinating is that between Mitch and Sauber Zoom. Very similar in terms of the gap between these two drivers as they head down through the start of lap number 5. The two big V12s, those V12 Lamborghinis, have been separating themselves from the front of the pack. These two more of them here being represented by the Williams Esports team and the Sauber team.
We've got Sauber Zoom in the zone. He's got his game face on, Ali. Looks mostly down and then just sort of up over the tops of his eyelids to be able to see the screen, completely entranced in the job at hand. Zoom knows he has to get around Mitch because his teammates are back in 10th and 12th. So the points haul is gonna come from Zoom, but whether it'll be a 12-point day from the team as it is right now, or perhaps a 15-point day, that's all on him.
It's one of those idiosyncrasies of all the drivers, you know, the way that they look at the screen while they're doing it. It's so subconscious. As a streamer myself, whenever I'm watching back my streams, I'm like, that's my gameplay. Okay, I thought mine would be nicer than that. I thought I'd look cooler. It's hard to look cool while you're concentrating.
Well, and even whether or not you have your controller above a desk, whether you have your hands up sort of higher, whether your shoulders are arched, it's all about a comfort level. And when you're driving for hours on end, it can really stack on you. It can wear and tear.
Zoom just a hair wide there as we ran through the back of the track and powering down toward the start of the start-finish line at the start of lap number 6. We can hop forward to Lage, who's still running in the lead of this race, and for my money may have extended 1 or 2 car lengths over Racers there. We'll monitor that. I wonder whether Racers might have a small advantage in the corners, while Lage has got a little bit more squirt on the long straight bits.
Exactly, Ali, and that's just the setup of their cars. You've got the Aventador for Racers, which is an interesting choice because it was the only one of that category to be selected. So out of the V12 category, everyone else went with the Centenarios, but Racers in the Aventador, and I really like that call. It's got slightly less horsepower intrinsically, but the two cars similar aero to begin with, but racing clearly very differently.
Well, we can take a deeper dive into Red Bull Racing's strategy with Kate Osborne.
I had a quick conversation with Asics before this race. He said the things that they're working on will let Lage win. Second, with Box, he said that Huracan without wings, they know that those cars are going to be super great on Sebring and Road America. With more top speed, he said that was a very big surprise and a nice one at that because they weren't expecting it without the wings. And then with Venom, he said that they knew he would be slow at the back of the pack during the last 2 events. So they're really utilizing him right now. One thing he did say, though, he does not eat breakfast on race day, so he is hungry. And those are the takeaways from Red Bull Racing.
Fascinating to hear, and it's one of those moments, one of those things that you always think when you watch Lage going around the track. It's how is he so fast? What is it that he does that's different to other drivers that makes him quicker? And Shay, I mean, what do you make of these geniuses in their sport, people who are right at the top?
Well, not eating breakfast is interesting because then your body isn't focusing on digestion, and that's something completely subconscious, but it still draws energy away. So maybe he's utilizing that little bit of added focus from his body to just drive the car. That could be the trick. I mean, I don't know, if I don't eat breakfast, I tend to get a lot grouchier. Maybe that's what's going on with Mitch and with Zoom. They're both sort of hangry.
Angry. Let's check in on the two hangry drivers battling for third position. I think the hangrier that Zoom gets, the closer he pulls in towards Mitch's rear. It's getting very close now. The two Centenarios, incredible cars. They run the same engine as the Aventador, but it's a slightly more tuned up version with just a few extra horsepower on it. A big old V12 with 6.5 litres of displacement. Both of these drivers making that look like nothing, making it look very easy to drive indeed.
Looking at the ticker, Ali, Rossi needs to get around Venom because that's a point swing in the favor of Lazarus. All right, it's a 1-point swing, but it closes the gap that Red Bull Racing has been able to build as Mitch goes a little bit wide into the hairpin. Zoom unable to capitalize on that, though. If Rossi can get around Venom, and they're not too far apart. Remember, Rossi running the car with a lot more downforce on it. He just needs to capitalize on the early part of the circuit because Venom is able to pull away in the latter half.
Look on the ticker on the left-hand side of the screen there. The leading team coming out of Res 1, the dark blue RBR drivers of Lage, Box and Venom, first, 6th and 8th. They would accrue 30 points if this race would have finished right now and these results weren't to be adjudicated differently. Lazarus, on the other hand, the pink cars of racers Force 1 and Rossi, they will be coming away with 26 points. It's incredibly close, just a 4-point swing between these drivers coming into this race. We're looking at another 4-point swing here in race number 2, but Rossi could make that difference, could close that gap if he can catch up to the rear of this driver here, RBR Venom, and make that overtake. Just one lap will remain to do that, and this is going to have to be a banzai from Rossi.
He needs to make the overtake, but he also needs a little bit of a cushion because Rossi running with a 3/4 second penalty.
Wow, 3/4.
Means that Venom has a little bit of breathing room.
Venom using that breathing room well and will be relaxed. He's a cool character and he keeps his nerve, holds his nerve in these incredibly high pressure situations. We can hop forward to Zoom though, who's well, he's been trying to keep his nerve, but these two have been getting a little bit more flared up, let's say. Mitch and Zoom certainly came to grief in race number 1 with Mitch barging into the white and red car of Sauber's lead runner to the extent that he got a penalty. This race, Mitch has led quite comfortably throughout the race, so there's been a bit of bumping and grinding between the two of them. And Zoom looking for a gap and looking for a last chance saloon, a last opportunity here as we run through the last half of the last lap.
Zoom, who's a young Brazilian man, an electromechanical technician student. He is a smart person too, on top of being a very good driver, going up against Williams Mitch, young Englishman who's a mechanic in real life. So clearly neither of these guys are a slouch, Ali, when it comes to a true profession, but clearly not slouches as drivers either on the track.
Both doing incredible jobs, but we're going to jump forward to Red Bull Racing's Lage. Last time through the NGK chicane and pushing up toward that final corner. It's a right-hander. There's no way that racers can make a move from that far back. This one's all tied up and more or less in the books as Lage powers down. That Lamborghini Centenario revs up its 6.5 litre V12, and it's a beautiful sound as he heads toward the line, taking 20 points for Red Bull Racing. And Lazarus Racers will settle for second with Williams Mitch holding on for that last step of the podium.
Box in 7th and Venom in 8th, though that is not as good of a performance from Red Bull as they previously had. That means 29 points provisionally going towards Red Bull, 26 points provisionally towards Lazarus. So the gap, 3 points, which would be interesting because then it's only a 7-point advantage and we're halfway through. That is doable.
Okay, well, I'm looking right now at Venom and looking at the Red Bull team. here. You can see they're satisfied, you can see there's contentment there, but at the same time, that lead that they've created after the first 2 races, it could be bigger. There may be some nerves here heading into the second half of the afternoon.
That's not enough for confidence. It's nerve-wracking because we're leaving Europe. We're getting on a plane, flying our cars across the pond, and landing at Hendricks Field to go to Sebring next. Very different circuit from what we've raced on. It will favor different cars than what we've seen. And then rounding things out at Road America in Wisconsin, that's another one with the long straights, but it does have a fair few twisty bits to it as well. I don't think anyone can be confident with what they've done just yet.
We have an incredible afternoon of racing ahead of us. This, of course, the grand final of the Forza Racing Championship 2019 Invitational Series. It's been fantastic so far, and this driver right here that we're looking at, Red Bull Racing's Lage, so dominant throughout qualifying, took a short break in the mid-season, came back for the LAN, and he has just fit right back into that alpha role. He's been racking up the wins for Red Bull.
He's won 3 out of 4 Forza Racing Championships. He doesn't want to make it 3 out of 5. He'd rather it be 4 out of 5. And he's done everything today that he needs to make sure that they come home with the biggest chunk of change.
Well, we have a little bit more of an insight into one of the teams out there on track, Sauber Esports, with Kate Yeager.
Oh, man. Okay, so we talked to Stephen English over on Williams' side. I want to hear your perspective of the Zoom Mitch volley, as it were, for both of these races.
Yeah, there seems to be a bit of a rivalry blossoming there. Is that the right term for that? I think there's sort of 6 of one and half a dozen of another there, so we'll see how it pans out in the next couple of races, but it's certainly entertaining to watch at the minute.
Very diplomatic and absolutely very entertaining. Speaking of entertaining, let's talk about the do-si-do that Davey and Chemical had with that positioning.
Yeah, no, Dave's car's just rapid on the straight, so we decided to sort of put him a bit higher up to see how many points he could get, off the start line. So that was all really.
Okay, so yesterday's semifinals saw Zoom at that top of that podium. Could not be matched, couldn't be reached. Yeah, you hear me talking about you. I want to know what you're looking at now for race number 3, since that hasn't come to fruition yet. You are the wild card. What does your strat look like going into this 3rd race?
Yeah, I mean, I think, we put a lot of effort into getting here. We put more effort into the semi. So, obviously it'd be wonderful to have Zoom on the podium, and he's going to get there. I've massive faith in that. Our cars are more suited to Sebring and Road America, so it's going to happen.
There it is. Confidence, and I love it. Over to you guys at the analyst desk.
There's a reason we keep talking about the Zoom Mitch battle, and it's because it has a domino effect on how everything has been going down within the top of that grid.
Yeah, absolutely. We talked about at the very top. Sauber has a chance. It's because Zoom is winning all of these races. Hasn't worked out so far, but there has definitely been no shortage of excitement between Zoom and Williams Mitch.
It dispersed pretty quickly at the beginning of this race too. These two guys were going hard at it once again, but it was nothing like Mugello. Once Mitch got past, it was pretty much done. He secured that 3rd spot, but like Zerma has been saying, there is something blossoming between these two teams.
We've seen some scraping between these two teams. I actually counter that, because you're seeing it right here, going down the front straight of the GP. These guys are driving how I do during the random ring race, just using other cars for bumpers.
And just to give you some context, these guys are no strangers. Do you remember in the London finals? These two guys were hammering each other in the Porsche Cayman around the Nurburgring GP track. It was mental.
And based on that insight that Kate Osborne gave us on their actual individual thoughts on this that's ensuing, it seems like the tensions are just as high as far as the mental aspect as well. It's not just us assuming based on the tension on track.
Yeah, I mean, these guys are, right across from one another. I'm kind of looking at the stage right now, and I see the sight line that Zoom has down onto Mitch right there is giving him some evil eyes, perhaps. And Mitch can shoot it right back.
And since our race results are currently ready as far as how everything went down in race number 2, I want to get Melish's insight on the fact that we have these cars that are built for different tracks entirely. So based on the race results that we see, how do you think those builds factored into that?
Absolutely. You can see there from the top 3 of the top 4, that is Lage, Mitch and Zoom. They're all running the Chen scenario, but there's something very specific about that car. You can have multiple builds. You can build it for speed, and you can build it for grip. Lage and Mitch have built it for grip Zoom has built it for speed, which is why he's such a pest right now. At the beginning of the race, he can get out early, make those attacks, but he's just not been able to solidify those positions.
And based on those differences in builds and the fact that Lage was able to get that first place finish, do you think he should have been able to do that with it?
Yeah, I think that on the Nurburgring, you need a grip build right there. There's not a lot of super long straights that you can take advantage of that power, but I think Zoom might be set up for the next couple of races with a power build.
And I have to point out as well, the second place there, Racers, he actually, on paper, should have won that race. That Aventor is mechanical grip and acceleration, which is what Nürburgring GP is all about.
It feels like Lazarus are still having a good race. It's just Red Bull right now in kind of the top spot after the first race are doing a bit more as an overall team. Some of that, even with Venom only occupying an additional position this time, it's still a great performance.
I love what I've seen of Venom today. Remember, he earned a boost that in the race number 1 that Lage used here. He made up a spot here today in a car that had no PI, and so he's definitely serving his role really well for the Red Bull team.
Yeah, Davey Skills and Roadrunner have been going at it so much. It doesn't seem like that on the race results, but they were going hard. And we saw Venom just make the best of a bad situation that he wasn't even involved in. So he's gaining extra positions and winning his class.
The positioning that we see for these results from Williams, Mitch, Roadrunner, and Seven kind of spread across. Going into this, they were pretty solidly in that third place spot with more of a spread between second and third. So what do you want to see different from them, considering, Brian, you predicted them to take it all?
I did, and I think we need Seven up a few positions. We need Roadrunner up in 4th and 5th, and we need Mitch really challenging Lage here to get those points.
And that point spread continues. 59 to RBR in the top spot. Lazarus with 52, 38 for Williams, and 23 for Sauber. Considering that it's only a 7-point difference between the first and second positions, and we're talking about that Lazarus are having a good race, it just hasn't been up to par with what Red Bull was able to pull out. Is there anything that you think the pink wall can pull to maybe try and close that gap even more and surpass for that number 1 spot?
Racers has got to do it.
Yep.
Racers has got to take the win, but I have to say, he's fighting against the top drivers in the competition. You're going against Lage. Lage should not have won that in the grip build, but you're going against Lage, and he's just half human, half robot. We're going to find out how he's doing this. So in 20 years' time, when
we're going to disassemble him and check out his positronic matrix and figure out that he's actually Data from Star Trek.
Exactly, that's what we've got to do, because there's something about the way that he drives which is just exemplary from the rest. And that's just the way it is.
There's 2 more races for every driver to try and prove themselves here within our LAN. But I know that we've been getting a lot of perspective from different pro drivers, the coaches themselves. And Kate and Kate have been doing a great job bringing us that information. But I want to know what you 2 think about how everything's been going so far.
Oh, Gabby.
Gabby.
That is the big question around here, I think, right now.
It is.
What I find interesting is the fact that they the battles between Williams and Sauber right now are kind of making it a different day for Lazarus and Red Bull than maybe some had anticipated. 100%. And as long as those 2 battles are still going down between Mitch and Zoom, it's allowing these other teams to kind of work on their own individual strategies, which I think is actually the important thing.
Absolutely. And if you're in chat, you're seeing there's a lot of fervency on all 4 of these teams. There's a lot of people going for Williams. There's a lot of people going for Lazarus. There's a lot wondering, can Lage be stopped? And I don't think so. So then we'll find out.
We'll find out. We've had 2 races. We have 2 more to go.
Oh, yeah.
And then, Kate.
Oh, man.
We're crowning a champ. Woo-wee. Make sure you join us in just a bit and stay tuned on all of our social fronts.
Motor Trend presents Top Gear's ultimate guide to power.
That works just fine.
Top Gear, the ultimate collection. now streaming on Motor Trend.
Every day amplified.
Back. We told you we're going to have more racing coming your way, and that's exactly what is going to go down. We have 2 more races here before we crown a champion of ForzaRC Invitational Series 2019 Grand Finals champ. It's coming in just a little bit, but of course we have a whole lot of racing to go down before that, and it's not over yet. Although we know that Lage is pulling away with a couple of these wins, I know that Racers back behind him has a very quick car and knows that he knows how to get the job done. So we'll see how it all unfolds. And of course, we have that little battle between Mitch and Zoom as well. And then a couple of guys in the back playing it safe and just getting some mad points for their team. That is what this is all about. It's all about the team. To dive a little deeper into the analysis of what we have seen so far, let's go over to Kate and Andy.
Hey guys, okay, Andy, you are a guy who has your analyst hat on all the time, whether you're on the desk or not. I want to know what you're thinking about, not just with the Williams, Mitch, and the Zoom rivalry here, but Lage up front. Give me all the details. What are you thinking right now?
So what you're seeing here is a lot of horsepower. I think this is the most horsepower we've seen all season. And when you add more horsepower, you add more speed. It just gets a lot more harder to get those cars to turn in the tight corners.
And I will say, for those of us watching at home, you might seem like the cars are going rather slow. They're not going slow. It's difficult to hold on to these horses.
Yeah, so some of the cars, they'll reach actually as high as 240 miles per hour. 240 in this game. Go ahead and drive one of these cars at 240 miles an hour. You're going to end up lifting on the controller. You can't go flat out on these things.
Okay, so I'm going to ask you the question that I'm sure everyone in chat wants to know, which is, as somebody who has been here from the beginning, who is in the chat, who's on the desk, who are you looking at now for this third race? I mean, who are you looking at most on the tarmac?
Who am I looking at? Yeah. I might be looking at the tarmac. We're going to Sebring. It's bumpy. I've actually driven on this track, and you can't even hold on to the steering wheel. You're trying to find your apex, and it's doing this. The track is the star this time.
Fantastic. Okay, when it comes to the Williams Mitch and, of course, the Zoom from Sauber, how are you feeling about that? I mean, we like a clean race, but we also like some drama.
Yeah, so Zoom's got a lot of power in that car. He's got more power than anyone else today. Mitch is more of a grip build, more of suspension. He's got a lot of upgrades there. I think the suspension handling is going to be key here at Sebring.
Okay, I got to ask, because Lage is just so good. It's just like watching, it's like watching poetry. It's like watching Shakespeare the way it was meant to be played, the way it was meant to be said. Well, can he be beat?
It's unfair. It almost looks unfair at this point, and he's won previously Forza Racing Championships before. Yeah. I haven't seen him miss an apex. He's been that good.
He's been that good. If you're coaching any of these teams right now, what's going to be? I mean, there's a lot of strategy going into this. It's a team game for obvious reasons. What's going to be your main takeaway? What are you telling people for this race 3 with all of the people you're looking at on the tarmac right now?
They haven't. The strategy of trying to keep it clean or try and go for a boost, I think at this point, that's your only shot. If you're going to try and keep up to Red Bull, maybe try and earn a boost. That's the only thing I see happening.
There it is, absolutely. Now, over to you guys.
Was race number 3, and it's gonna be awesome. We've got a little bit of a break, a little bit of a pause, and a moment for the studio to compose itself. All the drivers settling back into their seats and looking a little more relaxed now.
Composing myself.
Yeah, that's right. It's kind of like a mid-match huddle. I feel like a few of the teams out there may have changed their strategies a little bit and maybe looking at just changing things up. What do you reckon, Shay?
Yeah, I saw a lot of huddling going on. It was very interesting to see the rush of drivers all going to the bathroom together, and then they all came back together too. So there clearly was a race that happened. We just don't know who won that one, but that's less important.
I'm not sure there were any winners in that race.
No, there's never any winners.
There will be a winner in the next race, though, and that's going to Sebring. Let's check out the next circuit. It's Shay's home. She's right next to it. Maybe I'm going to retire there one day because it's a beautiful circuit.
Do not retire to Sebring, Florida.
Go around your house to retire, Shay. You can look forward to that.
You can come to Fort Lauderdale. That's different. 3.74 miles at Sebring International Raceway, built on Hendricks Airfield. What was an Air Force base opened up in the end of 1941. It was first opened up as a racetrack, though, in 1950 and has played host the 17 terms in the legendary concrete to the Sebring 12 Hours ever since. We do have a Sebring 12-hour winner amongst us with Corey Lewis here from the Lamborghini team when he won a couple years ago in the Lamborghini, driving alongside Brian Sellers and Madison Snow, who went on to win the championship in Orlando that year too. So pretty decent circuit when it comes to that manufacturer. And we're going to have 12 of them out on track, diving into Sunset Bend, turn 17. Hopefully the sun isn't setting in the game at this time because it really is nearly impossible to see. But I love this place. It's bumpy, it's twisty, it's technical, it's fast, and it is legendary.
Well, I've said it over and over throughout this championship, but it is such a pleasure to be joined by Shay Adams, such a wealth of knowledge for the tracks around the world, and of course Sebring, a place very, very close to your heart. Let's check out the grid that's going to head down into turn 1 across that bumpy concrete. It's such a characteristic circuit. Red Bull Racing electing to put Lage up on top, Box in the mid-pack, Venom at the back.
Box with a boost upgrade. They're clearly giving Box an opportunity to try and mix it up with the Sauber, Williams, and Lazarus teams, 4th, 3rd, and 2nd on the grid. But Lage, once again, with the boost upgrade, looking to go into that left-hander turn 1 with a clear advantage.
That team will be looking to lock things up now as we head through Sebring. A team hoping to open it up, hoping to get things back moving is Lazarus, 7 points behind after 2 races, so there's not a lot in it, but nothing much has changed in terms of strategy, Shay, with races at the front.
He's got a much more difficult job, though, at Sebring, Ali, because being on the outside through turn 1 is not an enviable position, and the next turn through is, again, a left, so you want that pole position, or you want to be 3rd. That would almost be the bigger advantage.
Well, that leads us on quite nicely to Williams sitting in that 3rd place spot. It's going to be Mitch eyeing up the rear of Red Bull Racing's Lage's car and sitting on the road just behind him.
Mitch also with the boost upgrade. He has the heaviest car in the field. Remember, that is a huge disadvantage coming into Sebring because you feel every bump 2, 3, 4, perhaps 5 times.
Okay, the final team on this track, Sauber Esports, have had a little rough time in the first 2 races. Through 23 points so far, 15 points behind the team up the road from them. That's Williams Esports. They need to turn things around in the second half of this championship if they want to move up the order. Well, this is the way that they plan on doing that. Zoom in 4th, Davey in 8th, and Chemical in 12th.
Sauber Zoom's going to watch his rearview mirror because Box is going to be a-coming, and it's going to be an issue for the first time for Zoom. He won't be able to strictly battle Mitch. He's going to have to worry about Box.
These drivers will all be eyeing up that start-finish line and eyeing up the run down towards turn 1. We're going to be able to go trackside any second now. We're on board with LZR Rossi, who's looking around the outside of Venom through that bumpy concrete at turn 1. Cold tyres, concrete, bumps. That's a recipe for understeer, and Rossi finds out all about that as he goes very wide on the turn-in point to turn 1. Chemical in the beautiful Veneno, the Soul Veneno, out there on the circuit, suffering a little through the first 2 turns as Rossi tries it on the outside, dips a wheel on the grass, gets a slide on, and loses a position. How he held that together, I do not know.
Great recovery from Rossi, the young Scottish driver, to not wind up going off driver's right into the wall, but now he's got a lot of catching up to do. Mitch is up into second if the ticker is to be believed, and now it swaps back to Racers in second, but still Lage leading the way after 7 turns around Sebring International Raceway.
There are battles all the way through the mid-pack, and let's jump forward into them if we can. It's going to be Box, I believe, we get on board with here. Force 1, excuse me, we get on board with here in 7th place, leaning on the rear bumper of Davies Gills, who gets a little slide on through the double left-hander there, but setting up the tower, looks stable. Force 1 again onto his bumper. It's that kind of a driver that I think Zindog calls a nibbler every now and again. It's somebody who leans on you, taps on you, won't let you get a rhythm together. It's a very, very irritating person to have in your rearview mirror.
You mean like Mitch the Mosquito from yesterday?
Let's get on board with Mitch the Mosquito right now in 3rd place. Not leaning on anyone's bumper this race, but looking forward up the road toward Racers and Lage, and still in touch with this battle.
Something just happened between Rossi and 7 as they both dropped down to 11th and 12th on the ticker, but right now on board with Mitch does not have the big rear wing, which means he's able to close the gap to Racers down the long stretch into turn 17, and he should be able to maintain that position as they go into turn 1, but as soon as they exit there, things will change.
Yeah, I love this camera. Suddenly opening up to realize that Sauber Zoom is right on Mitch's tail as well. It's a 3-way scrap for 2nd position. The bright pink car of Racers there leading the pack. Lage with a small lead, a little bit more than the gap to the car behind, and maybe able to hold the lead for now.
Because Mitch and Zoom being close to each other on track is just always peaceful, Ali. It always goes well. Oh, no, wait. Zoom gets a huge tank slapper. The young Brazilian needing to hang on to that one a little bit tighter, as it seems that order has been restored. Well, not for Zoom, dropping wheels off the right side of the track. That's not going to help you get traction.
Mitch and Zoom, they love to bump fairings, they love to have a little scrap out there on track, and we love to see it. Let's be real, it's one of the most fun things in the Forza Racing Championship, when you see a rivalry, when you see it bloom over multiple races, and wow, have these two put on a show for us. A little bit more of a sleeper competition between Lage and Racers, yet to get the spark to ignite the battle between those two. But Lage continues to run in the lead and doing a fantastic job, as he always does, for Red Bull Racing. Sitting on board right now, though, with Zoom and looking up toward those podium runners.
Zoom taking some very weird lines around the backside of the circuit, going well wide through 13 and through Tower, as Mitch now pulling away from Zoom a little bit, so he's lost some speed in that Lamborghini of his.
Top back to Force 1 in 7th position. Force 1 with a move on Davies Gills through the back sector of the track. Nice. Oh, little road left for him on the apex. Has to back out, has to roll off the throttle. Looks again to the outside this time. Davies Gills so slow on the apexes, and Force 1 cannot find a way through.
That was actually a move that Force 1 just pulled that we were discussing at the Michelin Encore about 2 weeks ago. Is it faster to swing well wide through 16 and then cut back across the apex, or is it better to take a traditional line and then get a better run out of 16 into turn 17 down the long straight? Well, for Davies Gills, his move worked. For Force 1, doing the late apex, it didn't work in the car with all the downforce. He's trying to figure out some way to be fast on the straight bits, but Force 1 needs patience. How many times have I said patience today? If that was a drinking game, someone would be in the hospital by now. But these guys are not listening. They are running out of time as Roadrunner looks down the inside of Force 1.
Right, let's be real here, Shay. Force 1 is having a little bit of a rougher race than he might have in race number 3. Looking at the leaderboard, we can see that LZR sits behind RBR in 1 and 2. LZR sits behind RBR in 9 and 10, but it's that mid-pack battle between Force 1 and Box in the middle racing car, the middle ranker car. I believe it's the V10s. the Lamborghini road cars, where LZR have just slipped behind a little bit. They need to get past Davy Skills and really force one. They need to turn on the magnets and close that gap up to box in 5th position.
It's a terrible point swing right now, provisionally 31 points for Red Bull Racing, 22 for LZR. So their chance at this money is going out the window, and they right now are the only team who can really take it to Red Bull Racing.
This, of course, is the grand final of the Forza Racing Championship Invitational Series presented by Lamborghini. A $250,000 prize pool is on the line, and these drivers are putting everything out on the track. Force 1 up the inside of Davy Skills for the second time of asking in the same place. Muscles through this time. You could see him leaning on the brake, maybe even flirting with the throttle there as he pushed Davy wide and made that move stick.
That was a beautiful move by Force 1, the young American representing well there around Sebring, a track that does tend to be good to the Stars and Stripes.
Davy wants it back, wants to have a little sniff here, but in the corners he's not going to have a chance. The lack of aerodynamics on that in that Hurricane that he's running will let him down in the corners. It's so important, Shay, to get a car that when air starts flowing over it, gets some compression into the road.
Davey got a great run out of 17 though, and he did manage to close back in on Force 1 as they went into turn 1. But you're right, Ali, it's almost like an upside down airplane wing. You want to make sure that your car is glued to the road, particularly at a place like Sebring, where the bumps will try to throw you into the air. So if you manage to get a car that gets a little bit extra glue to the surface, that's the difference between winning and third.
Let's hop up on board with LZR Racers, somebody who's been struggling to stay, battle for the lead here. The competition he's up against is the notorious RBR Lage, and he's not yet managed to put a convincing move on him, although he has kept him very honest in a few other races. We've got Kate Osborne, who's got a little bit more depth on how Racers is doing.
Here's the thing, Lage has proven he has the car to beat, but Racers feels he has the pace. In race number 2, he said the gap between he and Lage was consistent the entire race. He also said Lage has a good build, but my car is really suited for these twisty tracks. He said that is perfect for Sebring. More importantly, he said, Kate, I'm driving out of my mind here today, Ali.
He is driving out of his mind, and I believe him. It's been a fantastic run for Racers. Second places across the board so far, and has been leading the way for Lazarus. Let's got back on board though with Force 1. Running in 6th position. You can see him up the road now, having passed Davey. We saw that move that he put on him. Very brave through the back section of the track, and now beginning to get a gap, to grow a gap, and to maintain a gap to 7th place. For my money, with the pace that Force 1 is now putting onto this circuit, he might close up to box.
He might, but it's going to take some doing because they're about 500 feet apart right now, and we are running out of laps as we are on lap 5 of 7. So you've got 2 and a bit laps to get this done. You want to just hit on for a moment how well Racers is driving, that he has pulled away from Mitch. That in itself is impressive. Racers, who was 19th individually in the world last year, pulling away from number 3, Mitch.
Incredible run by the whole Lazarus team. It's a moment to think about the team strategies here as we're past the midpoint in this race. We're on lap 5 of 7, heading towards really the end game of this race, and with the final race coming up, the 4th race of the event, it's going to be the end game of the team strategies as well. Looking at the points that the teams would accrue coming out of this race, currently Red Bull Racing have done a fantastic job, will take 31 points if their positions hold, and Lazarus will be on a 23, almost doubling the difference between the two teams.
A really good move there out of turn 12 for Davey Skills as he manages to get the power down out of turn 8, actually. It was a bit further back around the course. The visibility of Sebring is this difficult. It's always a place that tricks you. The light there bouncing off the pavement in very different ways, and it does catch your visibility out. We always focus on turn 17 being Sunset Bend, but the rest of the track isn't just a cakewalk, particularly for morning warm-up. If there's fog around, you could have a session canceled because people won't be able to see Ali.
I was lucky enough to go to Sebring with the guys from Alien Motorsport a few years ago. And I was there, I think, in March, and it was so hot. I could not believe how warm Florida was in the early part of spring.
No, that's like still winter for us. That's
That's
still
right,
very,
still.
very quiet, very easy.
The oven was on
weather
preheat
conditions.
at that point, yeah.
Yes, exactly. It wasn't even cranked up to full yet. No, Sebring is a place that is physically challenging, mentally demanding, and quite frankly, it can beat down the best drivers in the world. Is that a penalty hanging over Force 1 now? It looks like half a second for LZR Force 1, so Davey Skills doesn't need to pass him, he just needs to get close.
Well, from Force 1's woes with a penalty, we can head forward to Racers in third place, who's now in a battle with Williams' Mitch. He looked solid in second for a long time during this race. I wonder if there was a small mistake on lap 6 or lap 5 to allow Mitch to sneak on through. Puff of smoke there from Mitch as he locks up under brake application. Soon had that under control, had the tyres rolling and decelerating for him neat and tidy very quickly after that. And now Racers with a whole lot more trouble on his plate than he previously had. Mitch is someone who it's very difficult to get around.
The only advantage is that they're in different cars, Ali, so they're fighting with different boxing gloves on. But for Racers in the Aventador, the car has proven to be super fast. They're both running the boost upgrades. They're both in very similar situations. Mitch, who has been racing for a little bit longer than Racers, though. Racers only had it for 5 years. Mitch had it for 12. That could be the difference made. Mitch has seen everything.
Such a strong performance from Racers today, and a strong performance from Mitch as well. He's starting to now wind up as we head toward the second half of the event. The characteristic of the tracks that we've visited today, very international. We've gone around the world. We started off on 2 very grip-oriented tracks, but now heading into the second half of the day, speed seems more important.
Speed is very important, particularly at the next track that we go to. There's long straights, even more so than here, and you've got a lot of corners that benefit you when you've got high downforce, which is something quite different to Sebring. So it could play out differently, but for Red Bull right now, sitting with 31 points as we start the final lap, they're looking at now an 11-point advantage over both second and third. That would make the lead almost completely insurmountable.
Wow, and for my money, Mitch pulling away there, managing to push that gap, extend that lead over Racers. The changing of the tide here for Lazarus has not suited them as things stand. We're heading through the final lap, and Racers needs to do a little more. Force 1 needs to do a little more. Rossi needs to do a little more. Lazarus looking a little bit on the back foot now, even compared to Williams, who would be on equal scores with them if things were to end as they do now.
We do have some adjudication to come, though, Ali, and we do have those in-game penalties that have been issued. There's one over Force 1. There's one hanging over Davey Skills as well, but it looks like both Williams and Red Bull have run clean races so far. So that will be more boost upgrades for them going into the final race of the year. Forget the championship, the final race of the year, Ali.
Wow, it's been so great. It makes me a little sad that we're wrapping things up soon, but at the same time, it's reached such a great conclusion. We've climbed such a cool mountain here in the Invitational Series, and to finish it with this event partnered with Lamborghini has just been fantastic. So many cool things happening. We still have another race to go, though, and RBR Lage will still have to prove himself one more time after this. But for now, there are no more questions for Lage at Sebring, who runs through T17. You can see he's relaxing in that little picture of him in the bottom left of the frame, looking satisfied with himself as he powers down, heads out of T17, and crosses the line to take his 3rd win of the day. I cannot tell you how impressive that is for any driver to achieve this, even Lage, at this level of competition, in this arena, and at this time in the series.
Racer shaking his head, knowing that he did everything he could, and it wasn't enough to even get second. That is not a good result for Red Bull, coming on 1st, 5th, and 9th. If Venom can hold on to it as he comes around the final turn, he should be able to. There's no one around. A superb point score from Red Bull Racing.
Well, we can see their faces there. Venom looking satisfied, for my money, with his result. A small smile there, and he's chatting to his teammates. Box just to his left, and further along the line will be RBR Lage. All 3 of them have teamed together really well for this final competition. We chatted a lot about Lage missing out some of the races coming into this, but the team has gelled so quickly in the LAN environment and really look composed now as we head into the final race.
Yeah, and particularly when you consider that the coach, Asic, stepped in for those 2 weeks when we didn't have Lage, and it wasn't as if they missed a beat. So that tells you the gelling that's gone on, not only with the drivers, but also with the coach.
So many things to pick apart as we look at the success of Red Bull in this third race of the day. And who better to do it than Kate Osborne with our 2 professional drivers?
2 pro drivers. One of those pro drivers has actually won the 12 Hours of Sebring. Pretty impressive, so he obviously knows how difficult it is to drive one of these Lamborghinis on a track like that. Can you give us some insight on what that's really all about?
Yeah, from the real world standpoint, that place is always extremely physical. I mean, the bumps in turn 1 and 17, watching the race, you know, I had flashbacks of being actually in the real race car, and honestly, you leave that weekend all sore, black and blued and whatnot, and to see the race is coming down to literally the final race now. It seems like Red Bull has got a little bit of an advantage, but going into the final one, all gloves are off. It's not over till that checker flag flies, so we'll see what happens.
Number 4 is coming up so soon, but before we get to that, I want to make sure, Charlie, you give us your perspective on race number 3 and how that really could have solidified something.
It was a race where Lazarus needed to put the pressure on Red Bull more than ever at that point in time and keep the thumb screws on. Were they going to take the fight to them? I mean, it's a difficult track there, like Corey said, the bumps. I noticed a lot of drivers even experimenting with different lines through the corners, trying to just find any kind of an advantage to draw in the car in front. But yeah, it's going to be a tough order, I think. But like Corey said, it's not over until it's over. To finish first you've got to finish.
Very valid points. And of course, you're talking about kind of what it takes, the advantages over at Road America. You've driven it there a couple of times, and of course, you have your own experiences. What are those advantages?
Honestly, the slipstream with the Lamborghini chassis, it's very sleek. It likes the draft, and I feel like that's going to come in a massive play here for the final event. As I mentioned before, all gloves are off. I'd be curious if the driver's a little bit more aggressive on the opening laps. It seems like everyone's kind of sets lockstep there for the rest of the race. So I'm curious if they're going to go be a little bit more aggressive to get some maximum points.
Now, is it going to be the aggression at the start? Is it going to be aggressive throughout the entire event? Because right now, all gloves are off. There's absolutely no reason some of these teams are doing anything but for their win and those points.
I think they're going to need to be a lot more aggressive coming to this final round. If Lazarus can steal something back, it's the mid 2 races we've seen everyone getting a little bit more spread out, and I just think this last race could be it's going to be all guns blazing, no holds barred. Everybody's going to be waiting, and we could see some wild moves, and I'm going to be on the edge of my seat watching this.
The pro perspective from both of them. Gabby, you guys have any thoughts to what they said?
Well, as our pros said, it ain't over till it's over, and there's still going to be one more race to go. Everyone putting their best foot forward, as always, including Lage.
Yeah, I don't want to go against what you just said, Gabby, there, but if Lage continues on this path, it's over because he has turned in an incredible performance today, being the lead of his team and just bringing it race after race, Malish.
He's on course to actually match his semi-final record here right now. He's 3 for 4 right now. He's 3 out of 4. He can make it 4. And, you know, listen to that interview. The only way that any team right now that's not Red Bull Racing to win is to stop Lage from winning. That hasn't happened all championship.
No one's even gotten close.
No one's even close to challenge him.
And Lage isn't the kind of driver that needs help from anyone else, but it seems to be also working to his advantage that there has been so much of the tension happening with those drivers right behind him.
Yeah, there's battles happening behind you, which means you've got clean air and nothing to worry about, and he is very comfortable today. Maybe flicking back a little bit, looking back what's happening, but all he has to worry about is the open road ahead of him.
Exactly, but that shows how important and how integral the qualifying part is of this championship. It's something you don't get to see, but getting that first place and putting Lage in that first spot means that he can do what he's really good at. Just not focusing on the battling behind him. Just go for those 20 points, because with the point structure, that's all that really matters, is getting those race wins.
With a wonderful invitational series so far, it is important to note and let everyone know in the audience that we have been confirmed to be coming back in the spring. So as far as individual performances from these drivers, looking at Lage, looking at all the others, how important is it for them to make a statement not just for their team, but the future of their careers?
Well, yeah, you're exactly right. A lot of these guys are racing for right now. Some racers that we even saw yesterday are racing for tomorrow. Their new contracts. I'm thinking specifically of a guy like Lightning, who is probably looking to say, hey, this is what I can do as a #1 on your team. There's going to be lots of shakeups in the offseason.
FRF were definitely buttering him up in the hotel last night. No, and that's right. You know, some people coming into this, I think Red Bull Racing, they have to make no changes to their roster. They're an all-star lineup. They're just going to practice and invest in the team that they currently got. When you've got teams like TX3, when you've got like an outstanding performer like Lightning, he's going to be looking elsewhere, because if you can't get the teammates to sustain that kind of victory and the success that the team needs, yeah, FRF's a great candidate for that.
And regardless of if you stay with your organization or move to another one, the results that you put on the table during this LAN are very important for that. So let's take a look at the results for race number 3. Lage, #1 spot. As we said, everyone expected him to be seeing him go across that finish line. But Mitch, Racer, Zoom still fighting out that battle for those top spots. And then everything to fall from there, from box to chemical.
Yeah. First, second place here for Mitch. He got one provisionally in Mugello. Obviously got that penalty, knocked him back down a little bit. Really surprised by Zoom. They built that car for speed. They were the only Centenario speed build, and it still finished 4th. It just pays dividends to how well Mitch and Lage are running in their grip build Centenarios.
And you see Mitch not only gets the advantage of a second place point, he gets the hard charger. I thought Dave might have had it, but he started where he finished in 8th place.
Look at Did you just realize
yeah,
too?
hard charger for 1 position gain. Yeah. That's all the change that happened. Mitch getting up to 2nd, which it just shows also, though, that everyone's kind of tightened things up a bit, it seems.
Yeah, and it also shows that these cars are, the racing on the track was relatively clean. We only saw a few penalties. There wasn't as much fighting as we saw, say, in race 1 at Mugello.
We've not been short of action. But that is hilarious. It's all zeros.
Well done.
Yeah, well done for consistency there. But that's not going to be enough to beat Red Bull.
but I have to say, this is a boost for the Williams team, right? At this point, I don't think they're challenging for the #1, but maybe it makes a difference to them between that 2nd and 3rd position.
Which is always different for prize pools as well.
And considering the break-off in points between each of these teams, 90, 72, 59, and 37 for RBR, Lazarus, Williams, and Sauber, is that boost going to be enough, though, for Williams to bump themselves from #3 to 2?
Well, they were 14 points difference from Lazarus going into race 3. Now 13 points difference. So we follow that trend a little bit. They're going to need a little bit more than 1 point gained, but they can still make that 2nd place spot.
So if we had 14 more races,
yes,
then they would get ahead of
And
them.
hey,
Absolutely.
I'm okay with 14 more races.
The way we're going, absolutely.
I'll be here
race
for the rest of the day. Yeah, let's do this.
I think we all share the sentiment as we start to end and get closer to those final moments. It's that bittersweet feeling, because we only have 1 race to go. So I want to know, before we get some thoughts from a coach in just a second, last race, how different is it? Are you going to change up your strategy, mentally speaking? As a coach, what do you even say to your team?
Well, if I'm Red Bull, I'm like, Lage, pat him on the head, go, send him. That's all you need to do at this point.
But if you're one of the other 3 teams, I think, you've done well. Give your team some encouragement. It's really important to get that backing and support from your coach as well. It's tough right now. All these teams came into this expect to do a lot better than they already have done. Red Bull have matched their expectations, but the other 3 teams haven't.
Luckily, we're not tasked with giving those motivational speeches to the drivers. That's the coach's job. One coach standing on by is that of Lazarus Rosso with Kate Yeager.
Okay, Rosso, you were studying that screen pretty intently. We're coming up to our last race. You're a coach who's got quite a field that you are in front of here. I'm curious what you're telling your drivers going into this last race.
I think this is just a have fun, consolidate race. Short of Red Bull going back to the hotel, I don't think we're going to catch them. So, yeah, I think get that 2nd, get the 40K, and get home.
That's fair. Okay, that works. Well, let me ask you this question. We keep talking about the battle between Williams, Mitch, and Zoom. Has that? We keep mentioning it's probably helped you guys out a lot. Would you agree?
I think so. This is kind of preoccupied one another. It's getting a bit needle. Kind of need a bit more help from them with the blue car. But yeah, it's been interesting to watch, to be fair.
Okay, so we're coming in, like I said, to the last race. What do you want your fans to know? The green, or excuse me, not the green wall. That's optic. Whoops, the pink wall. Pink wall, you've got a lot of fans in chat. You got a lot of fans on social. What do you want them to know going into this last race of 2019?
just a massive thank you for all the support. We see it, we appreciate it. Yeah, keep it up for the last one. Like I said, we need a bit of a miracle, but it can be done.
It can, in fact, be done. Okay, send it on back to you guys at the desk.
Wow, here we go towards the final race of the season. It makes you look back a little bit. It makes you think how good things have been. It also makes you wonder what's going to go on in the last one. Looks like Red Bull have things tied up, and Lazarus hoping for a miracle.
I'm really disappointed in Gabby mentioning the spring because these guys would have driven like there is no future. And they, perhaps dive bombing. We would have seen some moves that I would do in game. I'm happy to admit that. That perhaps would get you kicked out. So now we're not going to see that. People will be behaving a lot more.
Well, I'm also glad to hear it's spring 2020, and well, maybe almost a birthday gift for Matt6661, whose birthday is today. A big community member and a good buddy of mine, so give him a shout in chat as well. Let's go and look at the last track, though, Shay. It's going to be, of course, Road America, and a circuit that, well, it's got some delicious food, as we've discussed a couple of times. It's a place where particularly the culinary side is appealed.
Yep, cheese curds, corn, bratwurst, whatever you want, you can get in the stand just to the left of the media center. It's just on the other side of the tunnel from the picture that we're getting right here, but 4.064 miles, 14 turns, 7 laps, and a huge uphill run out of that turn 14 to cross the start-finish line. So as Corey hinted, drafting to the finish line will be a thing. You've got turn 1, which is very critical for track limits. Easy to run wide there, easy to get a penalty. Turns 9 and 10, the carousel, very well known. Turn 5 is another really good passing opportunity. You've got Canada Corner, where it's rumored if your brake fails, you will just keep on rolling all the way up north of the border. And that turn 14 that I mentioned, to slow in, fast out, and make sure you got somebody a little bit faster in front of you so you can use their draft to pass them at the finish line.
What an awesome, awesome circuit. Let's have a look at the grid as they're going to line up, heading towards turn number 1. Boost, boost, boost. Red Bull with a big statement to end the series.
Boost for everybody. Everybody gets a boost. How nice that they're finally making it equal amongst their 3 drivers. Venom in the back in the race car with the boost. He will definitely be able to pass people with that.
Second on the grid will be Williams after they outscored Lazarus in race number 3. Again, all 3 boosts. Williams ending the season strong.
And Mitch going to be looking to try and take it to Lage, diving down the inside, going into turn number 1. Have to see, though, if the starter in the 3rd position, which will be Lazarus and racers with no boost, if he'll be able to draft going into that turn 1. We might have an opportunity for someone different to be leading lap 1, Allie.
Well, the last team looking to shake things up here at Road America will be Sauber. They have moved everything around. It's all changed. Davey Skills is going to be starting off, getting a moment to shine in the sun, and Zoom back in 12th position.
And Chemical in the middle, so Zoom going for a hard charger, even though you don't get one, you don't get the advantage in the final race of the year. It's not like that boost is going to carry over to 2020, but still Zoom at least getting to have a little bit of fun and pass a lot of cars.
Maybe that's a thought for another season. Boosts that you can pop in the bank and accrue interest while the off-season progresses. We are heading up towards the race start, so get yourself in mind, savor it, drink it in. The last race start of the 2019 Invitational Series. It's happening right now as the drivers head on down towards T1. LZR racers, Rossi is who we're on board with, looking forward up the road toward Venom 7, and beyond them it's Sauber Zoom. Rossi with a little bit of a gap to the cars up ahead, and everyone through squeaky clean. Looks like plenty of bucking, plenty of jiving in the mid-pack and the rear pack here as Rossi throws a sweet overtake round the outside of 7 and heads on to the back straight.
Zoom looking around the outside of Venom and Chemical. His teammate makes it easy for him. Zoom going up into the 8th position now, so that is 4 places gained in 4 corners. Good start for Zoom. Now into turn 5 and dive down the inside on Rossi. That was 7 sticking his nose in. That was a little bit testy there, but Lage leading from Mitch and then racers in box.
Top on board with Williams, Roadrunner in the mid-pack, 6th position, and running a little bit stronger than 7, who had a little bit of a lunge there on Rossi. I will say, Roadrunner's had a fantastic season. The whole Williams team have, of course, coming into the event top seed. It's been such a great result for them to be able to make it through the final, to be pushing through the final, and now to be looking at bringing home a 3rd place spot in the final and looking to be ending very strong. They're caught in each other's bumpers, and that was closer than you can know. On Forza Motorsport 7, that is the kind of contact that will cause a spin. Roadrunner getting away with it.
What brilliant car control from Roadrunner to not go spinning across the nose of Davy Skills through the carousel, an extremely difficult corner when you're by yourself, then throw in somebody giving you some extra momentum from the wrong direction. That just makes things even worse. Force 1 now goes around the outside of Davy Skills as he continues to plummet down through the field. The best of the Sauber drivers now down to 8th. Make that 9th.
Well, as we run along with Sauber, Shay, let's have a little think about this team, how they've run through the competition. Such a reactive strategy unit. They've been really considerate, really thinking about how they should approach these races. It's paid huge dividends throughout the event, and well, they're coming into the final and looking at a fantastic, fantastic finishing result.
Part of what has made them so strong is their coach, Sauber Zimdog, who is a very articulate strategist. He can explain to his team why he wants to do what he wants to do. And part of that comes from his real-world experience. He's a very good coach, working with Davy Skills, Chemical, and of course Zoom this year has paid off for them. And so far, it looks to have paid off in the form of $22,000.
Sauber Zoom, Sauber Davy Skills, and Sauber Chemical, 3 drivers who have a huge amount of experience between them and are looking to wrap up this season potentially in a 4th place finishing spot. Let's get on board if we can, though, with a Williams driver up next. Those guys have done amazing as well. They've done a stellar job. We're looking at right now Mitch running in 2nd place in this race as Roadrunner goes very wide. A bit of a scrappy battle here between a couple of the Sauber guys and Roadrunner, and we're sitting on board with Roadrunner, who's on the inside of the carousel here. He's fought all season, has Roadrunner, in these mid-pack battles. He's so experienced up against these guys, and looking at him now, it never ended for him.
No, it didn't. Williams Roadrunner, a young man from England who was 7th in the world last year, been at Forza for 10 years. He works in automotive design in the real world. Teamwork was a big question mark for Roadrunner when the competition began, and he has really flourished in that position. It hasn't been the easiest season, Ali, for Williams, the only team where all of their drivers got wins individually, but they have had a little bit of strife. Losing their coach for this competition, Stephen English, filling in and doing a fantastic job, but that little bit of discrepancy between what they're used to and what they've experienced here, you have to wonder if that made the difference.
Williams Mitch, Williams Roadrunner, and Williams 7, a trio that we've celebrated throughout the entire championship as Roadrunner looks to the outside of Force 1 there in a very optimistic move through turn 1. It's a trio we've celebrated throughout the entire championship, and it's been fantastic to see them out on track. They're looking at a 3rd place finish in the team event. They may still sway things as the race continues, but for now, what a year it's been. How great to see him out on track.
$30,000 is a pretty good reward for them, walking away with a 3rd place finish if it holds as it does, and it would have to be a sizable point swing for anything else to change, as Force 1 and Roadrunner battling back and forth. Force 1 with a penalty, 3/4 second, so it doesn't really matter if Roadrunner gets through on the track or not. Williams RR would finish ahead.
Williams and Sauber seem to have their fates more or less sealed coming into this final race after finishing relatively strongly in 4th and 3rd and 4th respectively. Williams in 3rd and Sauber in 4th. We're on board right now with Force 1, who's running for the Lazarus team, hoping to be able to change things around in this final race. As things stand, lap 3 is 7. The checkered flag came out now. It would be Red Bull racing on 34 points, and the team you see in front of you, Lazarus, would be on 21. On the top of the frame, it's Lazarus, Rossi, and the bottom left, you got I think that's Force 1 and racers in the bottom right. It's been an absolutely brilliant day of racing for them, but also a season to remember.
For sure, and they started out 2019 very strongly, bonding together well. The entire Lazarus team, it's been the same 4 guys every single week. Force One, Racers, and Rossi driving. Rosso as the coach. This team, which is 3/4 from Great Britain, that outlier of Force One on our screen, the young American, originally from New Jersey, now calls Florida home, but representing well in this tournament and doing enough to cement second place, we think, to take home not 40, as Rosso said, but $45,000.
$45,000. That's plenty of monies. We're looking at Force One here up the inside of Sauber Zoom. He had a little bit of a slide there in turn 1. Hard to tell if he was just cutting it a bit wild, wanted to get some drifting going, or if it was a little bit of an error on the mid-corner. Either way, Zoom will make up the space and the speed on the back straight. Lazarus, though, are a team who have been defined by that pairing of Force One and Racers. 2 people who've known each other so many years, competed together so long, and have come together in this team and really just, it's been great to see the 2 of them just achieving their potential.
For sure, but don't sell Rossi short. I mean, the young man from Scotland who has been known in the community as a legend for setting up cars. His work, perhaps not the strongest driver on the team, but he has been inarguably one of the strongest team members of the competition, period.
Rossi has done incredible. He's got some amazing stats. Something like 7 fourth-place finishes. Never been on the podium, but 7 fourth places. And an incredibly consistent driver, a great guy as well, very popular in the community. And yeah, he's such a figure in the Forza Racing Championship. Great to see him out there. Running 10th position in this race. We're still on board with his teammate Force One, who's in 7th. Been forwards and backwards in this mid-pack, with some cars with loads of top end, some cars with better cornering, all of them Lamborghinis, and putting on a beautiful display here at Road America.
It is nice to see, though, Ali, that despite having this all but wrapped up with the bow on top, Red Bull not backing off. All 3 cars running with the boost upgrades. Remember, as Lage crosses the start line to begin lap number 5, Lage is in 1st, Box is in 4th, and Venom is in 7th. So they're all 3 still pushing really hard. Actually make that 8th for Venom as he drops back in position. Force One getting by him on that long straight, able to draft past before they get to turn 1.
Well, we're on board right now with Venom. He's been the support runner in Red Bull Racing since the start of the season. He's been the driver who's been given the least resources from the team, the least PI coming into events, the least boosts. He's had to scrap his way, fight his way up through the field, make the most with the least resources, and wow, he's put on a great job. Wow, he's put on some great performances.
Yeah, before the season began, there was a question around Venom and his ego. Would that allow him to be the support role, which was very clearly the role that he was given by the team. When you're not number 1 and you're not number 2, you're going to be number 3, but for Venom coming in as number 4, it just meant that he was automatically not going to be the strongest member of the team. When Lage disappeared, Venom didn't inherit 2nd. That position went to Coach Essex, who came in and stepped up. So it's been a very difficult year for Venom, but he has earned this win just as much as everyone else has.
You know, one of the highlights of the series for me has been watching the way that Venom has fought wheel to wheel at this land competition. Some of his driving has been, as I say that, he goes at a beautiful move up the inside of the carousel, but his driving has been aggressive, it's been assertive, but most of all, and this is the thing that you can't take for granted at the Forza Racing Championship, it's been highly respectful of all the cars around him. He's a driver who's very, very fair.
He is, and I can't remember the youngster from Illinois getting a penalty, actually, at any given point. That's a very valid argument, Ali. Venom has really flourished this year.
We are on board with Venom as we run through the final corner. Hop up forward and check out Venom's teammate. Here he is, RBR Box, driver from Germany, and he's a celebrated ForzaRC winner in his own right, winner of the Seattle playoff last year.
Yeah, and playing the game for 10 years, Robin Becca, Box's real name. He's an IT specialist back in Germany. Very quiet, does his talking on the track, and he hasn't been able to match what we've seen from Lage, but no one has, as has been demonstrated today. Winner of 12 out of 13 races that he's participated in so far as Lage. That'll be 13 out of 14 in a lap and a half's time.
you know, in contrast to Venom in some ways, Box has become more and more known for some very, very stout defensive maneuvers. And you can think of that what you will. You can say whether it's fair or not, the adjudication team in the end are the ones who decide that. But it does show hunger, and it shows how much Box wants and expects to achieve.
And it shows a little bit of desperation too, Ali, that he hasn't been able to keep it clean all year. Think back to Long Beach yesterday, that turn 1, he could have left Rosso a little bit of space, but he didn't. Instead, he drove the Lazarus driver into the wall, turn 1, lap 1. That's what we get from Box. So it's a very different style for the number 2 driver, and almost a little bit of wonder. Would he go to another team where he could become number 1 for 2020?
Wow, that's been such a tension for the Red Bull squad, and it's been a stellar job keeping all 3 of those drivers in check and in the team and right together. It's 3 lead drivers in many ways, and the 3 of them have done and achieved some amazing things this championship as Box leaves a little room. Sauber Zoom has a sniff on the inside of the apex that was Canada corner. And Box rolls over the apex here. So great to see him out racing throughout the championship. So much pace and such a stellar performer. Speaking of stellar performers, let's get on board with the race leader, RBR Lage, who has dominated this competition all the way through the series. He has dropped 1 race win from the races that he's been in throughout. Unbelievable consistency.
That was from a stop-and-go penalty, so it could have been a perfect season for the number 1 driver in the world. That would be Red Bull Racing Lage.
Here we go, running down the first corner. We ask ourselves over and over again, what is it that makes Lage so special? What is the secret ingredient that makes him so hard to beat, makes him so fast on track? Brian might talk about his positronic matrix, which I'm sure right now is beeping and gleaming everywhere. I think everyone else will have to think about the amount of practice that goes into this, the amount of time, the sacrifice, and the work that Lage puts in order to make these kinds of performances possible. It takes an athlete's mentality to pull off these athletic feats.
He goes in with one thing in mind: win or bust. He's got a bachelor's degree in international trade and logistics. So you factor in logistics to racing. That in itself is a recipe for disaster. But Lage is able to read the race, read the competition, figure out what he needs to do. He hasn't always had the best car or the best setup, but he has done the most with the most.
There are 4 teams out there on track: Sauber Esports, Williams Esports, Lazarus, and Red Bull Racing, all with their own unique personalities, their own approaches to how to race in the Forza Racing Championship. All 4 have put in incredible performances throughout the entire season, and it's been absolutely fantastic to watch. What an incredible display from all of our drivers in this Invitational Series. Lage crosses the line and takes the final win for Red Bull Racing, and surely cements their position as the leaders of this championship. Across the line behind him will follow Williams Mitch and LZR Racers for Williams Esports and Lazarus. Wow, Shay, what a season.
What a year wrapped up as Box comes across the line. Where's he going to finish? Should be in the 5th spot, and he goes sideways and barrel rolls in celebration. What is Venom gonna do? Nope, he keeps it clean and simple, going over to celebrate with his teammates. What a year, and what a job done by those 4 young men.
Yeah, lots of handshakes all round, and it's fantastic to see. A little bit of happiness on the faces, but dare I say a little bit of relief as well to see it all wrapped up, to see it in the bag. And surely those 3 will be thinking that adjudication couldn't sway anything. For me, there wasn't a lot that would change the result. For you, Shay, did you see anything?
No, I didn't. I didn't see any sort of dirty driving from those teams, 1st and 2nd. That would need to be looked at a little bit closer. I think there won't be as much mystery as perhaps we were hoping over who would take home number 1 in the championship. But a good job by everyone up on the stage, and I love to see the handshakes.
Well, let's check in with Gabby and the analysts, who I'm sure will want to talk all about the amazing performances we just saw.
Well, as Corey and Charlie said earlier, it ain't over till it's over, but in reality, it ain't over until adjudication says it's over.
That's right. That's nice. I like that.
Yeah, we have a few things to cover as we wait for our official declares to give us the final ruling. And in the meantime, we have plenty to talk about because looking right at the top, Red Bull Racing, Liège, and we say it time and time again because it happens that often going across in that number one spot.
Boy, what can you do against the Liège right there when he is determined in the right car with the right attitude and he's tuned up? I mean, he just delivered today time after time.
Full house. 8 out of 8. 8 out of 8 over these 2 days. I mean, that's a perfect record if I've ever seen one. I think he should get 3 boosts just for clean sheet there in perfect form.
Yeah.
Just by himself.
So put him to next season.
Yeah, for next season.
Yeah, for next season.
And if you did miss it earlier, we have been confirmed we will be coming back to you in the spring. So these drivers are not just looking at today, they're looking towards the future. We've gotten to see Liège's career evolve over time as formats have changed, but his performance is still consistently the same.
No, you're so right. Last year we were an individual championship.
I know.
Liège dominated. This year we've built teams into the competition, and Liège and his teammates dominated. I'm looking back at my friends at Turn 10, and I'm like, what are we going to do? How do we Liège-proof the Forza RC come spring?
So when they build this tournament for next year, that's going to be the top of the list. That is Liège-proof. He can't win next season.
I'm so stoked, though, to actually hear an official ruling. I know everybody in here you can almost feel the temperature rising as we get ready for that moment. So as we have our view and our perspective over here, I want to know from Allie, how are things looking over on the show floor?
Wow, in the studio, that tension, that competitive spirit has all moved away for a feeling of elation. You can see a lot of smiles out there, a lot of drivers shaking hands and comparing notes after 4 very, very challenging races. Shay, wow, what a season it's been. It's great to see everyone gathering together. We're a community, after all, even though we compete against each other.
There's relief on a lot of faces. There's some displeasure, some strife, some disappointment even, but the bigger picture, a lot more people are smiling than are frowning.
Absolutely right. We're looking here at the bright pink jumpers of the Lazarus team. They were chatting to the Williams drivers. Sauber now in the white and Red Bull Racing in the dark blue. A big shout out, of course, to all the livery designers who worked on the paints throughout the series. We have beautiful, colourful jumpers and teamwear that all the drivers are in, but that also is something that we reflect on track here in the Forza RC, and it's those livery drivers who do such a fantastic job. Shay, as we look to wrap up this championship, what are your final thoughts coming through this series?
It was just a surprise all around. Perhaps not with the win, but we had such good competition over the 8 weeks trying to decide who was going to get to come here. Now deciding who ultimately walks away with the biggest chunk of the pie. And since it's Thanksgiving next week, I think there's a lot of people who are hoping that it's pecan instead of pumpkin.
That's right. Well, let's without further ado, the adjudication is through, and Red Bull Racing have taken the victory here at the Forza Racing Championship Invitational Series presented by Lamborghini. An absolutely brilliant performance from them throughout the series and carried it through to our offline competition here in Burbank, Los Angeles. Liège there we can see on screen, a huge smile across his face, and hearing a handshake with Sauber Zoom and also the rest of his team lining up. Asics side by side with Liège, Venom there, and Box as well on these stairs now, walking up toward the trophy to get presented it by our 2 hosts. An incredible series, lots of high fives being shared, lots of happiness out there. You absolutely love to see it at the Forza Racing Championship. Gabby, what an awesome, awesome performance from Red Bull.
An awesome performance indeed. It's been such a pleasure watching what they could do on the track. And if we end up revisiting in a moment those final just decisions made for them to all come through for championship status. I love the lifting of the trophy, my favorite part, because you can just see the strength of the team in its entirety and feel that energy vibrating from the stage.
Absolutely. This is a team that we questioned their unity at the beginning of the season, but look at them now, standing atop the podium with the trophy.
And if you missed it, looking at how everything did finally go down for these teams, our match results, here is the finishing positions for everyone in race number 4. Liège in that number 1 spot, and a lot of fun had by these teams. You heard from Rosso beforehand. They already kind of had it in their head they weren't going to get the number 1 spot, so it's a chance to experiment, even some switching of positions just for the fun of it from teams like Sauber.
Yeah, I think Rosso cannot be one bit disappointed with their team. Team of youngsters, they're best friends. They've come up through the ranks with Forza from a very young age. They're still pretty young, and they've got decades of competition between them still. Look forward to next season.
I like what I see from Sauber too. Look at Zoom there. 7 spots made up. Boy, if that had happened early in the race, might have been a different story for Sauber.
They did great today. They still, were trying to go for it, got a big chunk of that prize pool. Williams as well, still getting that 3rd spot, and a lot to be proud of.
Yeah, Williams, a favorite certainly coming in. The #1 seed coming into the semifinals. They have nothing to be ashamed of. They raced hard all weekend. They were the dominant force coming into this.
I think what, decided their fate was qualifying 3rd. It's a tough lobby, qualifying 3rd, and we saw in that last race there, Mitch was actually keeping with Lage for the entirety of Road America. If only he had that choice for the remaining 3 tracks.
Every single point that we see there was so well earned. 124 points for Red Bull, 91 to follow with Lazarus, 81 for Williams, so they did still kind of tighten up that gap a bit, and then 48 earned by Sauber. Ooh.
Yeah, Lazarus and Williams right there together. Could have gone either way. Maybe an accident here, something happening. Could have seen a flip-flop on 2nd, 3rd. But boy, Red Bull, they're just dominant today.
80 points from Lage from that 124.
That's
That is how they win. I mean, great job from Box and Venom. It was a team effort overall, but taking 80 points in a LAN event in a final is insane.
Single-handedly, only 1 point less than Williams did entirely as a team with 81.
Yeah, I don't want to. I mean, obviously, Lage was dominant, but look at Box getting up into a great result in the final race there. Venom earning those crucial boosts. It was a team effort for Red Bull. That's how you win this championship.
And great experience for Lazarus racers too. They put him toe to toe. They gave him the 20 PI, same as Red Bull did with Lage. He just wasn't able to keep that gap. They went for 2 different choices. It didn't work out for them, but they gained that experience and they gained that knowledge.
And despite the fact that we have been watching these drivers for a very long time, even previous to this series, they've done so much growth across the 7 weeks and then this LAN itself. So with the team format, everything moving forward, coming back in the spring, what are some of your just favorite parts of the experience we've had during this entire time?
It's been a learning experience, right? As ForzaRC has evolved, so these teams have evolved as well. Not just season to season, but week to week. Remember back in week 1 with Lazarus struggled in week 1, and they got it together because they have those relationships. The future is bright for teams with deep rosters and deep relationships.
And going forward, you're looking at these rosters, and there are other teams that weren't invited to this invitational. They're going to be looking at these. These now are like hotcakes. They're in hot demand. You want to bag them and tag these top drivers because they're going to go pretty quickly.
And this is our last time here on the analyst desk. So before we get more from the drivers and the teams themselves, Malish, words for the community.
Ooh, as a community driver, I'm going to say you've not got long to practice. That's my general forethought because I know how long it takes to practice. So get ready and gear up.
And Brian, words for the community you've helped build?
Yeah, it's my favorite thing about Forza Racing Championship and Forza in general is the players that are part of it. Whether you're a painter, a tuner, a video maker, or a racer, you have a place in Forza. I love that about this. You see it here, the sense of community, comradeship. I love it. It's Forza.
Well, from the hearts of everyone that has graced this analyst desk, I want to thank each and every one of you that has tuned into all of the wonderful moments of ForzaRC. And of course, to the drivers and the coaches for putting everything on the table and giving us the best storylines we could hope to follow. For more from the drivers themselves, your champions, your victors, let's send it over to Kate and Kate.
Oh my goodness, they are indeed. I got Venom right here. Venom, you guys have been beach boot camping, as I've called it. How did you feel coming into today, and how do you feel right now in front of all the competition and the world?
I think we were pretty confident going in. Rosso said in that last interview in the week 3 or whatever it was that they wanted to race us at full strength, and that gave Lage all the motivation he needed to win all of the races. So thanks to him for that.
Oh, God, those are fighting words, and we're done.
And that's coming from a winner, too. Well said. Asics, you and I were having that conversation. There was a shift in your mentality approximately mid-event here, and you went from one place in your mind to another. What was that and why?
I mean, at the beginning, like I said, we were confident, but we kind of expect that other people had the same build as us. And when we saw the builds, we just like, okay, we got this. We can win. And then everything happened. And that's amazing.
real quick, any thoughts to your team members that you've been coaching and you've seen them grow and change and shift throughout this entire season?
I mean, what can I say? Guys, Lage is amazing. Nothing to say more than that. Box and Venom are just good hard worker. You know, we work so hard with the build and with the training, especially this week. And I just can't find the word to thank them because that was an amazing week and an amazing season. So yeah.
Hey, Box, this is a team full of alphas here, and I'm curious how you feel about not just Lage, but Venom, your teammates.
I'm extremely proud of my teammates, especially Lage and Venom both. Venom did some amazing walk today in traffic. It was as good as it even can be, and Lage just won the races and GG.
I will say, Lage, there was a couple people in chat that were wondering if you were a bot. So I'm just saying right now,
he is
a
is real
human
life.
bot,
We
an
can touch him.
IRL,
Yeah,
could not stop him, absolutely. But I guess we probably should hear from the guy himself.
Yeah, you know, Lage, obviously nearly come on, just can we get a little applause for Lage here right now? I mean, a nearly perfect event from start to finish. You've won a championship on your own, but at the same time, you're now celebrating this with your team. How gratifying is a win like this, knowing how important it is?
Well, I mean, some people were just like, he can win individually, so maybe he can't win in a group, and then that happened. So I'm happy about that.
How are you going to celebrate?
How we can celebrate? I don't know. We're just going back to the house for now, and then sesh and have some Red Bulls.
Clean up the house, have some Red Bulls. That sounds like a victory celebration to me.
Well played.
Congratulations to Red Bull Racing. I'd like to point out on your shirt. That's absolutely true. Congratulations to Red Bull Racing and, of course, to all of those teams who participated here not only this weekend, but over the course of the entire season. As Gabby said, it was really incredible insights and so much fun really seeing everybody come to life, show what they were made of, and especially when we brought in this team aspect to see the camaraderie amongst all of the teams. I'm Kate Osborne, and for everybody involved here this week, I got a Kate over here. I have a Gabby. I have an Andy. We have Corey. We have Charlie, Shay, Allie, Brian, and Mellish in their beautiful shirts. They are also winners today in those shirts alone. For the cast of hundreds that have put on this event, and especially week in and week out, it's been a grind, but a beautiful one at that. Thank you to everyone, of course, who's been involved in the community. You've made this very, very special for us. It's been super fun to see your insights along the way. And again, big news here coming your way. We're back with you spring 2020. Make sure to get all the latest and greatest coming out of the Forza RC on our socials. All right, it's time to wrap it up here. Let's go celebrate.
Grand final of the Forza Racing Championship Invitational Series 2019 presented by Lamborghini. We've got Williams Esports, Lazarus, Red Bull Racing, Sauber racing across 4 tracks. It's a whirlwind tour around the world. Mugello is where we're going to start off, heading then to Nurburgring and then Sebring and Road America. Down towards lap 1, we're corner 1, we're on board with Williams 7 running from the back of the field in that Lamborghini Huracan Super Trofeo up the inside of LZR Rossi and fishing around for a line there. Rossi well wide, but maybe able to hold it as we run up to the 2 sets of chicanes that mark the first sector here at Mugello. Rossi very much taking up a lot of track there, Shay, and getting a little greedy. 7 leaning on him and saying, you're going to have to give me some space. You can see with the benefit of that big rear spoiler, the Huracan, this is the road car rather than the Super Trofeo car, has a lot more cornering, and Force 1 will have the advantage, drives it around the outside of the chicane, bumps into the side of box, but that is going to be good enough, I suspect, to make the move stick, and Force 1 demotes box back into 6th position. This is interesting. As a test run for the finish, wow! Wow! As Davey Skills takes to the hard shoulder and the grass there to try and make a move. Grand finals presented by Lamborghini. RBR Lage will power down and head towards that start-finish line to take 20 points for Red Bull Racing in race number 1. Perfect start for Red Bull. As we head down towards turn 1, it's going to be the Lamborghini Huracan Super Trofeo that he put to such excellent use in race number 1. Double overtake with one of the Lazarus drivers, that's Rossi, getting into chemical on the outside of T1.
Davey
Skills with 3/4 of a second penalty hanging over his head, even though there's been a lot of collisions, and now Venom wants a piece of this too. Goes around the outside of Davy Skills, tries to go up the inside of Roadrunner. They're going to be 3 wide into the chicane.
I loved the confidence of Venom's move around the outside there. It was beautiful. Put me in mind of a move that RDE Hydra put on through the Arabiatas in the qualifying competition. It's incredibly close, just a 4-point swing between these drivers coming into this race. We're looking at another 4-point swing here in race number 2, but Rossi could make that difference, could close that gap if he can catch up to the rear of this driver here, RBR Venom, and make that overtake. Just 1 lap will remain to do that, and this is going to have to be a banzai from Rossi. This one's all tied up and more or less in the books as Lage powers down that Lamborghini Centenario, revs up its 6.5 litre V12, and it's a beautiful sound as he heads toward the line, taking 20 points for Red Bull Racing, and Lazarus Racers will settle for second with Williams Mitch holding on for that last step of the podium. On board with LZR Rossi, who's looking around the outside of Venom through that bumpy concrete at turn 1. Cold tyres, concrete, bumps. That's a recipe for understeer, and Rossi finds out all about that. This, of course, is the grand final of the Forza Racing Championship Invitational Series presented by Lamborghini. A $250,000 prize pool is on the line, and these drivers are putting everything out on the track. Fourth one up the inside of Davy Skills for the second time of asking in the same place. There are no more questions for Lage at Sebring, who runs through T17. You can see he's relaxing in that little picture of him in the bottom left of the frame, looking satisfied with himself as he powers down, heads out of T17 and crosses the line to take his 3rd win of the day. I cannot tell you how impressive that is. The drivers head on down towards T1. LZR Racers, Rossi is who we're on board with, looking forward up the road toward Venom 7, and beyond them it's Sauber Zoom. Rossi with a little bit of a gap to the cars up ahead, and everyone through squeaky clean.
The entire Lazarus team, it's been the same 4 guys every single week. Force One Racers and Rossi driving, Rosso as the coach.
Raced in the Forza Racing Championship, all 4 have put in incredible performances throughout the entire season, and it's been absolutely fantastic to watch. What an incredible display from all of our drivers in this Invitational Series. Lage crosses the line and takes the final win for Red Bull Racing, and surely cements their position as the leaders of this championship. Across the line behind him will follow Williams Mitch and LZR Racers.
Every day amplified.